Chapter 559. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, for years had passed. What happened in these 4 years? Rumor had it that an organization had appeared among the people. A year ago, they had ordered their subordinates to collect information on all the handsome men and beautiful women in the world and create a ranking system. Thus, a ranking list of the 8 most handsome men was created, and the ranking was not in order. Prince Xiao Ran of West Xian was only 16 years old. He was handsome and elegant, and people called him Flawless White Jade. The Southern Blue Crown Prince, Pang Huang, was only 20 years old. He was handsome and confident, and was known as the Dragon in the Clouds. Enlightened monk Su Jian, 20 years old, secluded in the valley. Spiritual Lotus Seed. Moon Palace's young master Higashio Motetsu, 20 years old, elegant, and devilish. Jade Swallow. Sichuan Prince Lin Fingyi, 21 years old, handsome, and beautiful. Jade Swallow. Famous and noble Ouyang Ju, 23 years old, elegant, and confident. Jade Swallow. There is also a handsome young man, 15 years old, named Chu Yin, known as the Thousand-Faced Red Fox. Every time he appeared, he only liked to dress in red. He was also good at sophistry, and his whereabouts were uncertain. No one had heard of this person before, but in the past 2 years, he had suddenly risen among the people. Not many people had seen him in person, but those who had seen him could not help but be mesmerized by his beauty. The 8 most handsome men were either of noble status, wealthy families, or elegant characters. But in short, they all had one thing in common, and that was that they were all unmarried. Even if Prince of Nansong Pang Huang had a concubine, in the eyes of the unmarried ladies, he was still a bachelor. The people on the ranking list could all be called golden bachelors. But because of their special status, very few people could see these handsome men on the ranking list. Thus, fantasizing became something that many women had to do every day. If I can meet Jade Swallow, I will definitely tell him about my feelings of longing. A girl in pink held her chin with both hands, showing a love-struck expression. Sigh, I would like to see Cloud Dragon first. I heard that he is brave and good at fighting. He is a very brave and handsome man. The girl in blue beside the girl in pink also had a love-struck expression. If I was 1 year younger, I would want to marry the Thousand-Faced Red Fox. I heard that his martial arts are outstanding, his appearance is devastatingly beautiful, and he treats people gently. If I could marry him, I would die without regrets. Another girl at the same table shook her head and sighed. At this time, in the corner of the restaurant, a 14 or a 15-year-old girl covered her mouth and teased a young man wearing a gauze hat beside her. Young master, someone is confessing to you again. You really like both young and old. The fingers of the youth who was drinking tea paused. He tilted his head and glanced at his personal maidservant. His voice carried a trace of languid freshness and blurriness. I found that after coming out, your mouth has become much sweeter. It's all thanks to young master's guidance. Maybe when we come out to play more in the future, I will be better at talking. The girl stuck out her tongue at him and took the opportunity to say. The youth shook his head with a smile and said to the swordsman in front of him, who was also 14 or 15-year-old, Jean Xian, have you noticed that Xining is getting more and more thick-skinned? I think so too. 4 years later, Jean Xian had gotten rid of the naivety of the past. It was as if he had learned to hide his sharpness and not show it. He was like a sword, handsome and handsome. Xining heard this and glared at Jean Xian fiercely, then quarreled with him again. The personal maid was Xining, and the personal guard was Jean Xian. It was not difficult to guess the identity of the youth. Chu Qingyin 4 years ago, Chu Yin 4 years later, and now the well-known Thousand-Faced Red Fox. It was just that no one could connect the two unrelated identities. Chu Qingyin played with the teacup in her hand, ignoring the quarrel between Xining and Jean Xian. She felt a little regretful. The ranking of handsome men was just a claptrap. There were more than a few handsome men in the world. If her big ice cube stood out, he could kill them in a second. However, she would not let the world see the big ice cube's face so easily. She tapped her finger on the table, but to be honest, she knew many of the 7 handsome men on the ranking. She remembered that when she left Sichuan 4 years ago, Xiao Ran was only a 12-year-old child. She wondered how he was now. She only knew that under the deliberate training of the Sichuan emperor, he had begun to participate in court politics last year. As the saying goes, a girl changes 18 times between childhood and womanhood. Boys also change when they grow up. She just did not expect that he would become the flawless white jade in the eyes of the people. She really missed the young man who had held her back and refused to let her leave after 4 years of not seeing him. She did not know the Prince of Nansong, but she had heard many stories about him. He was the brave and good war god of Nansong. Chu Qingyin did not think too much about the rest. Anyway, she would not have much interaction with him. However, she did not know that some people had not appeared yet, but it did not mean that they would be absent from her life. In Chu Qingyin's eyes, Su Jian was still a swindler. However, it was also thanks to him that she was able to successfully obtain the ice crystal flower. When they left Jiang country, he also left. He wandered for 3 years and only returned to Sichuan last year. They had not seen each other since they parted ways in Jiang country. Higashio Motetsu was the person Chu Qingyin did not want to mention the most. However, she would hear more or less about him. For example, he had established his own organization in the past 4 years, the Full Moon Sect. However, other than this, there was very little news about him. Chu Qingyin snorted. Perhaps he was concentrating on cultivating his heart-protecting moon technique. Lin Fengyi was another good friend of Big Ice Cube. She heard that he was working in Jiangnan. Chu Qingyin was quite curious about him. However, they had been monitored by the imperial court for the past few years. For safety reasons, they did not move around. If there was a chance, she wanted to go to Jiangnan to take a look. Chu Qingyin did not know much about Ouyangyan. It was only limited to the rumors circulating in the market. Therefore, Chu Qingyin did not delve into it. After drinking a few mouthfuls of tea, she suddenly missed Mao Jian. She'd been out for half a day. It was time to go back and eat. At this moment, Jean Xian lowered his head and said, "Master, it will be 5 in an hour. If we do not return, His Highness will punish us." When Chu Qingyin thought about her Big Ice Cube's handsome face and frowned slightly, her heart couldn't help but tremble. She coughed softly and said, "Let's go back." Putting down the silver, she got up. Her movements were as smooth as flowing water. The three of them passed through the tea house and headed for the door. The girls at the table who had been discussing earlier were attracted by the red-clothed youth in the lead. He liked to wear red clothes, covered his face with a veil, and had a male and female bodyguard and servant girl by his side. He was tall and had a noble temperament. Wasn't this the description of the thousand-faced red fox? The girls were somewhat uncertain. However, a gust of wind blew and inadvertently lifted the white veil, revealing an exquisite and handsome side profile. Everyone could not help but stare blankly. When they came back to their senses, the three of them had already walked far away. "What a handsome youth!" someone exclaimed. In March, the peach blossoms bloomed. In April, the fragrance faded. Next year, the branches sprouted. In the following month, the flowers bloomed again. In the unseen world, reincarnation turned. Everything began again. Chapter 560. 4 years ago, Xiao Su submitted a memorial saying that he was willing to stay in the Fuli mountain range to search for mineral resources and recuperate at the same time. The Sichuan emperor was very satisfied with this move because it would give Xiao Ran enough time to grow. It could also block the opinions of the party that supported Xiao Su. However, in order to make the Sichuan emperor feel that he was treating Xiao Su too coldly, he waved his hand and gave the barren hills and towns within 100 li of the Fuli mountain range to Xiao Su as his fief. Because those places were either deserted forests or farmlands that didn't have much of a harvest, it looked like a large area, but in reality, there was no tax to be collected. It could be said that it was of little value. However, how could he refuse an emperor's reward? Xiao Su accepted it without a word of complaint. Because this place was too desolate, the Sichuan emperor was very kind and didn't collect taxes from them. However, sometimes, a grain of sand that people didn't care about could become a pearl one day. Chu Qingyin brought Xining and Jean Xian back to Lianqing. At this time, Lianxing was no longer as desolate as it had been in the past. Now, vendors and small bosses were shouting on both sides of the street. The people coming and going were all people rushing home to cook and eat. There was an endless stream of horses and carriages, and wine flags fluttered in the wind. It was a lively scene. Perhaps it wasn't as prosperous as the capital, but to be able to achieve such results in such a remote place was already shocking enough. After 4 years, one had to have a whole new level of respect for them. However, all of this was due to Xiao Su's support. In the past, this place was still in ruins. Although the people weren't as bad as not having enough clothes to cover their bodies and food, it was normal for them to not know their next meal. Chu Qingyan stepped on the road back to the residence and saw that the commoners were living and working peacefully. She thought back to the time when they first arrived at this place, and how the commoners were afraid of them and ostracized them. Every time she saw such a peaceful life, Chu Qingyan couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. Her family's big ice cube was awesome. He could bring peace to the country through martial arts, and he could govern the country through literature. Look at how well he governed this place. She liked to walk back instead of riding a carriage because she liked to hear the praises of her family's big ice block and Xiao Lai ride from the people on the streets. It gave her a feeling of glory. In the past few years, she had also helped Big Ice Cube deal with these towns and barren mountains. Many times, she would pass on modern ideas to him. Big Ice Cube was too smart. Every time, he would be able to draw inferences from her words and apply them practically. But it had to be said that sometimes the collision of ancient and modern ideas could really create sparks. The King of England's residence. These 3 words suddenly appeared in front of her. There was a similar plaque in the capital. However, the words capital didn't seem to give off much of a feeling. However, the words in front of him gave off the feeling of a family's warmth. He didn't know if it was because his mentality had changed that he had such thoughts. There were 4 bodyguards standing guard outside the mansion. When they saw Chu Qingyan return, they bowed and saluted. Chu Qingyan was just about to step into the gate when she heard shouts coming from inside. The woman I introduced to Lord is a great beauty called Water Spirit. Why are you getting involved with me? A rough voice sounded. Oh, what's the use of looking like Water Spirit? Is she knowledgeable? Is she good at zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting? Do you know how to solve flowers and share the prince's worries? Another sharp voice, Chu Yin, squeezed. Old woman Su, are you looking for trouble with this old woman? Old woman Li, are you done yet? 2 gorgeously dressed matchmakers in their 30s or 40s walked out while cursing. However, they bumped into Chu Qingyan's group of 3. Old woman Su and old woman Li were people who relied on their eyesight to make a living. When they saw the young master in the lead, they saw that he was wearing a red robe with tight stitches. They could see that it was a famous Su embroidery of the highest quality. Although his face couldn't be seen due to the gauze hat on his head, some people's temperament was enough to make people fall head over heels for him. And the red-clothed youth in front of them already made the eyes of the 2 old women shine. Their occupational habits immediately flared up. This young master, may I ask your name and age? Where do you live? Have you ever married? Are your parents still alive? What business does your family have? The 2 had been quarreling fiercely just now, but the words they asked now were surprisingly tacit. After they finished speaking, the 2 glared at each other and whispered that she had seen this young master first. When the 2 finished speaking, the guards on both sides couldn't help but snicker. These 2 really had eyes but couldn't see gold and jade. The person in front of them was the mistress of their Wang Fu, their lord's most precious little Wang Fei. Just now, they had loudly proposed a marriage for the lord in front of her. Now, they wanted to propose a marriage for the little Wang Fei. They would probably be tortured to death later. They were waiting for a good show. You want to propose a marriage for His Royal Highness? Chu Qingyan seemed to not have heard their question. She raised an eyebrow slightly and asked in an indifferent tone. When the 2 heard her tone, it seemed that she was familiar with His Royal Highness. They felt that they had a chance of being a matchmaker, so the 2 immediately started talking at once. They talked about how beautiful and virtuous the person they wanted to propose a marriage for His Royal Highness. After the 2 talked for a long time, they found that the person in front of them didn't pay attention to them at all. Their expressions suddenly became a bit embarrassed. What about you two? You want to propose a marriage for the Lord, but have you asked his Wang Fei? Chu Qingyin's tone was still slow and leisurely. The two looked at each other and then shook their heads. Don't you know that the Wang Fei is in charge of everything in the inner courtyard, including the selection of concubines and maidservants? So when you see the Wang Fei, you can ask her for instructions. Chu Qingyin finished speaking and leisurely turned, planning to leave. But this young master, the King of England's consort, has never shown her face. Where can we go to find her? The two women had received money from the other party and couldn't help but feel anxious. Chu Qingyin curled her lips. This one can't help you. Send the guests out. As soon as he finished speaking, two guards stepped forward and grabbed the two burly matchmakers and brought them to the door. AI, this official, who was that young master just now? How old is he? Where does he live? Is he married? Are his parents still alive? What business does his family have? They didn't manage to get the King of England to marry, but the two didn't want to let go of that young master just now. He must be a smart and elegant young master. One of the guards sneered. Open your eyes and take a look. You dare to covet our Lord's people? Go, 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 don't come again. Inviting you out this time is already very polite. If you anger our Wang Fei, you can imagine the consequences. The two matchmakers then left with their tails between their legs. Chu Qingyin had just stepped onto the steps of the main courtyard when she saw Hualing. She immediately waved at him and had him come over. She asked in a small voice, "How is His Highness' mood today?" Hualing winked at her. Reporting to the princess, dark clouds are gathering. You're on your own. Chu Qingyin's shoulders instantly collapsed. It's over. Could she not see the big ice cube? Chapter 561. After hesitating outside for a while, Chu Qingyin felt that it was better to be stabbed than to be stabbed. It would be better to just walk in and be stabbed. Perhaps this matter would be over. When she gathered her courage and stood at the door, her footsteps suddenly stopped. Wait, she still hadn't thought of an excuse. At this moment, a deep voice came out from inside. How long do you want to dawdle? As soon as the voice fell, Chu Qingyin couldn't help rubbing her nose. Then she lifted her foot and walked in. Shi Ning and Jean Xin, who followed behind her, saw their master's usual majestic appearance in front of outsiders. But in front of His Highness, she was as obedient as a kitten. They simply didn't want to admit that she was their master. When Chu Qingyin walked in, she saw a person sitting behind a table with a book in his hand. One hand was resting on the table, and the other hand was holding a book, looking very leisurely. But when that person heard her footsteps, he turned around. Even after looking at him for 4 years, she still didn't get tired of looking at his face. His eyebrows were as calm as a lake. His eyes were as clear as the moonlight. His clothes were embroidered. His face was bright and clear, and his skin was as clear as snow. His natural cold elegance made people unable to help but hold their breaths. They were afraid that their actions would disturb this noble young master who seemed to have walked out of the immortal fog. She had once inadvertently blurted out a poem to describe him, but he had thrown her a cold face and ignored her for a day. But what she said was the truth. There is a beauty in the north, aloof and independent. A glance could topple a city. A second glance could topple a country. Rather than topple a country or a city, a beauty is hard to find. A beauty wasn't necessarily used to describe a woman. It was a pity that the big ice cube didn't seem to appreciate it. Thinking of this matter, Chu Qingyin shrugged her shoulders. At this time, her attention was already on the big ice cube. She saw him put down the book and slightly knit his brows as he looked at her. At this time, she remembered that she had forgotten to take off her veil. So she raised her hand to untie the string on her chin and casually took off her veil. The face hidden behind the veil was revealed to the air. When she was 10 years old, she had already begun to show signs of her beauty. Now that 4 years had passed, the baby fat had decreased by a lot. Her cheeks seemed to be lined with the rosy clouds of the morning sun. Her skin was like snow, and the autumn water was like jade. Her fingertips were as white as snow, and her face was covered by hibiscus. The willows between her brows were even. She was graceful and beautiful and naturally graceful. Her jet black hair was neatly tied up with a white jade ribbon. Her crimson-red robe made her look like a young man with a jade face, making people want to take pity on her. If one had to use a poem to describe her transformation and growth after 4 years, it would be, "The clouds think of her clothes, the flowers think of her face, the spring breeze brushes the railing, the dew is dense." Time could take away many things, such as the childishness in one's brows and the freshness in one's eyes. But at the same time, many things could be left behind, such as a brighter radiance in her eyes and a more mature charm. "Where did you go today?" Xiao Su looked at her travel-worn clothes and already had an answer in his heart. Unfortunately, he wanted to hear her answer. "I'm going to Furong Garden for lunch." Chu Qingyan stood upright and said, "Is that so?" Xiao Su dragged out his tone and then unhurriedly said, "Why didn't Huling run into you when she went to Furong Garden to buy pastries today?" No way, she was caught so quickly." Chu Qingyan immediately confessed and quickly said, "I went to Fu City." "Fu City? What did you go to Fu City for?" Xiao Su's eyes flashed with a trace of doubt. "A few days ago, I was talking to Sir Ruo about the spring floods that might affect the lives of the people on both sides of the river. So I went upstream to take a look." Chu Qingyan replied. Xiao Su relaxed his brows, and his expression eased a lot. These days, the little fellow had helped him a lot to look after his fiefdom, but he didn't allow her to leave the estate without his permission. Recently, the court had become turbulent again, and the people who tried to assassinate them before were showing signs of making a comeback. So he didn't want the little fellow to have any accidents when she went out. "Then what conclusion did you reach?" He would never not listen to the little fellow's opinion just because she was a girl. On the contrary, sometimes the little fellow's opinion was often something they hadn't thought of before. Fu City is upstream, so if the spring floods come, the impact won't be too big. But I'm afraid that the downstream won't be so optimistic. I found that the dams are built very low. If there's a flood, all of a sudden, the river will definitely overflow the dams and then flood the surrounding villages and towns. It will endanger the lives of the people and damage the property. Chu Qingyan seriously told him the situation she had observed. Because Big Ice Cube had been busy with the defense of Lian City recently, he certainly didn't have the extra energy to check the situation in Fu City. So today, when he left the estate to patrol the city, she secretly took Xining and Jean Xin out. If she had reported to Big Ice Cube in advance, he would definitely not have agreed to it. When the time came, he would have to go out himself, and she didn't know how long he would be busy. She was distressed for his health. The little fellow in front of him could be said to have become his right-hand woman. She had helped a lot in rebuilding these cities and towns. At this time, she had also provided a lot of information about the spring floods. Xiao Su's eyes flashed with a touch of appreciation. "Then in your opinion, what do you think we should do now?" He was now used to asking her, not necessarily because her suggestions were useful, but because he intended to cultivate her. Fortunately, she always lived up to his expectations. Chu Qingyan had thought of a countermeasure on the way back. At this time, when Xiao Su asked, she answered fluently. "I think we can take 3 measures. The first is to let the people downstream move away. The second is to divert Luo River. A force is huge, and if we block it blindly, it will collapse one day. But if we divert its power, then it won't be able to condense into a huge destructive force. We can also divert it to a wasteland not far downstream. I want to take a look in the afternoon and found that the wasteland is not lacking in nutrients. On the contrary, its soil is very fertile, but it lacks water. In this way, we can reduce the force of the water flow and water the soil. In the future, we can open up new fields and the people can use it to plant crops. In the future, there will be other harvests and we can feed many people. The last measure is that we can increase the height of the dam. No matter how strong the river is in the future, we won't be afraid that it will flood the people's homes and cause losses." Chu Qingyan smiled and told him her plan. She was inspired by you, the great flood control teacher in history class. However, she didn't remember much at that time, and combined it with her own observations and thoughts, she came to a conclusion. Xiao Su looked at the girl in front of him, who was smiling at him. He felt a sense of relief, as if he had a daughter who had just grown up. Chapter 562. The person in front of him was all smiles. She was no longer as naive as before. She had only grown stronger and more motivated. In these few years, she had followed him from the most difficult start to the stability they had today. She had never complained to him and had always gritted her teeth and persevered with him. When they had just arrived at Lian City, it was all in ruins. There wasn't even a clean place to rest. Mu Ling had brought people to repair the prince's residence overnight. She hadn't been idle either. Sometimes she would help pass this and that. She didn't even care about the heavy rain. When they were building the city gate, she had also accompanied the guards to the front line. It could be said that she had accompanied him step by step to complete Lian City. It could also be said that she had contributed to every transformation of this 100 miles of land. All right, I will discuss your suggestion with Mr. Roa. If it can be implemented, I can give the order today. Xiao Su nodded slightly. The little fellow's suggestion was acceptable. However, they needed more precise arrangements to be able to implement it. Chu Qingyan expressed her understanding. She had only proposed a rough plan. To truly implement it, they still needed manpower and resources. She raised her head, revealing a soft and beautiful neck. The beautiful curve stopped at her collar. Xiao Su's gaze inadvertently swept across this scene. His eyes flashed slightly, and he looked away without leaving a trace. For some reason, as time passed and the little fellow grew, his gaze would always involuntarily stay on her body. In the past, she was like a branch that had just sprouted. Now, she was like a flower bud that was about to bloom. The petals were covered with sparkling dewdrops, dazzling the eyes. Xiao Su felt very comforted. After all, he had put in so much effort to nurture her. She had grown up to be so pleasing to the eye. It was something to be proud of. It gave him a greater sense of achievement than winning so many battles. However, this feeling had unknowingly changed. As for what it had changed into, he couldn't see through it. However, for now, he would continue like this. If it reached a point where he had no choice but to change, he would think about it again. On the battlefield, the raging flame war god was proficient in Qimendo techniques and could see through the enemy's thoughts. In Chu Qingyan's words, his intelligence was off the charts and his looks were off the charts. However, when it came to matters of the heart, he was like an ignorant youth. He could not understand his own feelings at all. He thought that his feelings for Chu Qingyan were just a form of love and care. However, it had been a long time since that love and care had become that kind of love and care. It was understandable that Xiao Su was slow when it came to relationships. After all, he had never paid attention to the women around him and kept them at arm's length. No woman dared to approach him. Even if they were female subordinates, he would treat them as if they were men. Chu Qingyan was just as slow. She could talk about other people's relationships as if she knew everything, but when it came to herself, it was useless. When you're confused, you're just stuck in the game. Only when you understand your own intentions will you be able to jump out of the puzzle. So between the two of them, there was still a long way to go before they could reach their goal. When Chu Qingyan heard this, she was very happy in her heart. What she admired the most about Big Ice Block was that he never looked at family background when choosing people. Just like her, he never looked down on her because she was a woman and looked down on her. That's right, Big Ice Block. I heard Wu Ling say that you're planning to build a high bridge over the Baiyang River. Why do you suddenly want to build one? I remember there's a bridge over the Baiyang River. When she had brought Xining and Jean Exan out to play, they had even walked over the arch bridge when they passed by the Baiyang River. Xiao Su nodded, but the expression on his face instantly froze. There is indeed a bridge, but when it rained a few days ago, cracks appeared on the bridge, and there are signs of it collapsing under the bridge. Now it's forbidden to pass through. If a few more days pass, I'm afraid the bridge won't be able to withstand the load and will collapse. What? Chu Qingyan was a little surprised. Wasn't that bridge built 5 years ago? Why is it collapsing so quickly? As soon as the words came out of her mouth, a few words floated in her mind. Cutting corners. Could it be that the people who built it embezzled public funds and tampered with the materials? Chu Qingyan asked. At this time, Turin walked in with steady steps. After bowing to the two of them, he reported, "Master, official Xian has already admitted his guilt. That year, he embezzled the money allocated by the imperial court. When he was building the bridge, the materials he bought were very poor, so the bridge could not last for more than 5 years. Since the evidence is conclusive, put him in prison. The money from the confiscation will be put into Lian City's treasury." Xiao immediately ordered without hesitation, "Master, I heard that official Xian is the brother-in-law of Prime Minister Fu's son." Turin hesitated for a moment before speaking. At this time, Chu Qingyan was a little surprised. Now that they were in Lian City, it seemed that they were separated from the imperial court. Consort Yu and the others couldn't reach so far and come to Lian City to make an enemy out of them. However, she didn't expect to meet someone from the Fu family here. However, the law was not merciful. If the emperor broke the law, he would be punished the same as the commoners. Even if they had lived peacefully with the Fu family for the past 4 years, they couldn't allow a corrupt official to rule. When Xiao heard this, he frowned. This prince doesn't care what his identity is. Since he has committed a crime and landed in this prince's hands, he shouldn't even think about escaping. Turin, do as this prince says. If he dares to resist, there's no need to be polite with him. Chu Qingyan's eyes curved into crescents as she smiled. This kind of big ice cube was the most domineering. He never bowed down because of power. "Big ice cube, I'm so tired. I'm going to rest." Chu Qingyan stretched and acted coquettishly. At this time, there was only the two of them left in the study. This soft voice was not like the wind in the past. It was like a cat's paw that scratched at his heart. It was itchy and a little numb. Xiao turned to look at the sky outside. It was still early. He looked at her with a cold expression. "You left the Fu without permission. Although you were on official business, you still went against my orders. So, you're punished to carry 30 caddies of weight and run 10 laps. You can rest when you finish running." "What? 10 laps?" Chu Qingyan could already see the stars spinning in front of her. "There's no bargaining. Go." Xiao waved his hand at her. It was already a foregone conclusion. Chu Qingyan could only accept her fate and walk out of the room. At this time, she met Huoling, who was preparing to go in to report. When he saw his little princess consort's dejected appearance, he couldn't help teasing. "Master is covered in dark clouds today. Did the dark clouds turn sunny?" Chu Qingyan pointed at her face. "Seeing me like this, do you still think there's a chance of it turning sunny?" Huoling shook his head with a smile. "You shouldn't run around in the future. It's not safe outside. Master is just worried about you." Chu Qingyan wanted to cry. She had just been punished a few days ago, and she was being punished again today. How could she tell that he was worried about her? Wasn't this worry a little too obvious? Chapter 563. When Chu Qingyan accepted her fate and ran around the prince's residence, the servants in the residence were already used to it. The young Wang Fei was often punished by His Highness. At first, they all thought that the young Wang Fei had fallen out of favor. Some blind people even gossiped. Unfortunately, not long after, she disappeared. Later, in the Wang Fu, many servants understood one thing. In this Wang Fu, you can offend anyone, but you can't offend His Highness young Wang Fei, because he can make you pack up and leave at any time. When Chu Qingyan ran the 9th lap, she was still as light as a swallow. She didn't know if it was because of big ice cubes training over the past few years, but she found that her waist wasn't sore and her legs didn't hurt anymore. She also felt more energetic. Just as the last lap was about to be completed, her father scurried out from the side. "Kai, look. Father caught a cricket. It's so big. This way, I can fight crickets with Huoling." The father in front of her was still as handsome as he was 4 years ago. It was as if time hadn't left any traces on him. Chu Qingyan looked at the pitiful cricket in his hand and cleared her throat. "Father, daughter thinks that instead of fighting crickets, carving flowers and grass is better. I have Woody. Whatever I want, Woody will carve it for me. It doesn't matter. That's right, I also want Woody to help me make a cage. The cage doesn't need to be too big, but it needs to have a bed because the cricket needs to sleep. It also needs a bathtub and a dressing table." Father Chu answered matter-of-factly as he counted with his fingers. Chu Qingyin thought of Hualing, who was pestered to the point of tears by her father a few days ago. She couldn't help but observe a moment of silence for him. Father's condition was sometimes good and sometimes bad. In these 4 years, Yin Luo had been studying his condition. Fortunately, it didn't worsen. Instead, it improved little by little. It was a pity that her father's ability to tease people increased. Hualing and the others wouldn't take the initiative to meet him if they could avoid him. As a result, her father was always jumping up and down in the residence, looking for traces of Xiao Lai. As she thought about her father's condition, Chu Qingyin suddenly recalled that Sister Yin Luo had sent someone to summon her this morning. Since she had nothing to do now, she took her father to the Yin Garden in the prince's mansion. The Yin Garden was a place specially opened up for her to grow herbs and research poisons. As soon as Chu Qingyin entered, she saw people hoeing in the herb garden. She crossed her arms and leaned against the door. She could not help but laugh. "Why are you alone today? Where's Ethereal? What is he doing here? I can handle it myself." Cheng Yin Luo wiped the sweat off her forehead and spoke in a cold tone. Chu Qingyin shrugged. The two of them had been in a love-hate relationship for 4 years, but it was still the same. The people around them had been anxious at the beginning, but now they could make a pot of tea and watch the progress from the side. "I heard that the Hollow Man isn't feeling well today. I wonder if it's because he ate something bad, or if he ate something bad." Mr. Chu kept repeating the same sentence over and over again. Cheng Yin Luo couldn't help but frown when she heard this. Her expression did not escape Chu Qingyin's eyes. She curled her lips into a smile. These two were really awkward. One clearly liked her very much, but she refused to say it. The other clearly cared about her very much, but he refused to admit it. She couldn't help but think of Yi Lingfeng and Du Qing, who were far away in the Jiang Kingdom. Back then, everyone thought that Yi Lingfeng wouldn't be able to survive that stab, but Du Qing didn't give up on him. She stayed by his bed day and night, taking care of him. After 7 days, Yi Lingfeng finally woke up and passed the critical period. Just when everyone thought that this pair of lovers should finally get married, right? However, the two of them did something that made everyone's jaws drop. After Yi Lingfeng recovered from his injuries, he began to confess his feelings to Du Qing on various occasions and at various times. He didn't care who was standing next to him. Unfortunately, Du Qing rejected him time and time again. Yi Lingfeng, on the other hand, seemed to become braver with every setback. He came up with endless ways to express his feelings, trying to make her accept him bit by bit. There was once when Chu Qingyin found out that the two of them were still at the stage of confessing and rejecting each other. In a letter, Du Qing asked her why she was tormenting herself. However, Du Qing's answer was that if some things were too easily obtained, the other party wouldn't cherish them. Therefore, she wanted to engrave them in her heart. Chu Qingyin deeply admired these people who had the courage to live a life of love and hate. However, now that they were back to the main topic, when Chu Qingyin asked her why she was looking for her this morning, Cheng Yinluo's expression turned serious. "I realize that my current treatment method isn't very effective for old Master Chu's illness, so I want to try another method. However, before that, I need to ask for your opinion. Will it be life-threatening?" Chu Qingyin asked seriously. "No, it's just that the process will be more painful." Cheng Yinluo shook her head. Hence, Chu Qingyin turned to ask the person beside her, "Father, what do you think?" "All right, I want to transform back to my original form to make Dan Yang happy." "Transform?" Mr. Chu began to spin in circles again. Chu Qingyin nodded at Cheng Yinluo. "Let's do it your way." Mr. Chu ran out of the garden to play, leaving only Chu Qingyin and Cheng Yinluo inside. "Sister Yinluo, do you know what I want to do the most right now?" Chu Qingyin asked her. "What is it?" Cheng Yinluo washed the dirt off her hands and turned to look at her. The young girl in front of her looked elegant and refined, but her every frown and smile were always charming. The little girl in front of her had already grown up. She was slender, elegant, bright, and lovely. "I want to make money. Make a lot of money." Chu Qingyin sighed. "Didn't you say that Big Ice Cube is tall, rich, and handsome? Are you saying that he's only tall, handsome, and not rich?" Cheng Yinluo teased her. Chu Qingyin sighed softly. That was indeed the case in the past. But now we've invested a lot of manpower and resources into these towns and cities. We've built roads and bridges for the welfare of the people. Plus, we've searched for and processed the mineral resources in Fully Mountain Range. Big Ice Cube is about to run out of money. Although the fief is slowly starting to reap the harvest, it's just a drop in the bucket. I'm worried that if we have to build a dam soon, we'll really become paupers. Money wasn't everything, but it was absolutely impossible to do anything without it. She could now understand the importance of money. So what do you want to do? Cheng Yinluo had always believed in her intelligence and ability. As long as she said it, she would do it, no matter how difficult it was. Her question hit the nail on the head. Chu Qingyin whispered mysteriously, I have a preliminary plan, but I'm not sure if it'll work. Chapter 564. Cheng Yinluo's interest was piqued at the mention of a money-making opportunity. Tell me about it. Chu Qingyin narrowed her eyes and smiled. Do you remember the Shuexin lipstick that I asked you to develop? I remember. I always thought that it was pretty good. Cheng Yinluo's eyes lit up as if she had thought of something. She turned to look at her for confirmation. Are you thinking of selling it? Chu Qingyin chuckled. What do you think? What do you think? It's a good skincare product regardless of whether it's winter, spring, summer, or autumn. Even men can use it, let alone women. She had thought of this before, but they had been busy looking for herbs at that time. She didn't have the time or energy to do so. Besides, the time and place were not right. Later, she had followed Big Ice Cube to Lianqing. The first thing she had to do was to integrate into the life here and build the infrastructure. She had thought that she could live a life of luxury after hooking up with the tall, rich, and handsome Big Ice Cube. Unfortunately, she had been investing in manpower and resources ever since she arrived in Lianqing. The Fully Mountain Range was also a gap, so she had to invest money continuously. It could be said that they had been burning money. However, the iron ore mines in the Fully Mountain Range couldn't be stopped. That was what they relied on now and could be used as a bargaining chip in future negotiations with the Imperial Court. That's right. But it's easier said than done. It won't be easy to put on the market. Cheng Yinluo raised her doubts. I understand. Everything is difficult at the beginning. I only have a preliminary idea. If I'm sure it's going to be implemented, I'll need a detailed plan. Chu Qingyin winked at Cheng Yinluo mischievously. She continued, Besides, the Shuexin lipstick alone won't be enough to satisfy the market. I have a few more that can beautify and protect one's skin. When we find a business opportunity, we can invest in them directly. You have a lot of them? Cheng Yinluo's eyes lit up. Yes. When the time comes, I'll write down the formula, and you can develop it into a finished product. You see, we have the technology and production. What we lack is a sales channel. Chu Qingyin stroked her chin and pondered with a frown. They had everything except for the sales channel. If they could open up the market, even if they didn't make a lot of money, at least they wouldn't suffer a loss. Cheng Yinluo nodded. Do you have any good ideas? I heard that there are many businessmen in Jiangnan. Jiangnan. Hey, I want to go to Jiangnan to see if I can find a business opportunity. Cheng Yinluo had wanted to visit Jiangnan for a long time, but she had always been in Jiangnan. The little girl had always been reliable, so Cheng Yinluo had never objected to her decisions. However, when she thought of Xiao Su, who had been taking good care of the little girl for the past few years, she couldn't help but tease. Do you think your ice cube will allow you to do these things? Is my big ice cube democratic? Cheng Yinluo shrugged. I'll wait and see. The matter was over. After all, they couldn't go to Jiangnan in a day or two. Chu Qingyin wanted to talk to Big Ice Cube about this matter after the spring flood. She wanted to give the other formulas to Yinluo first. If she could successfully produce them, she could use them to negotiate with people in Jiangnan. Then, she would have a higher bargaining chip. After they finished talking about business, they began to talk about private matters. It's been a few years. Do you still want to waste time with him? Chu Qingyin asked casually. She plucked a green foxtail and shook it. Cheng Yinluo was squatting down a weed. Her palm was pricked by the thorns on the grass when she touched it. She immediately withdrew her hand and saw a drop of blood on her fingertip. She stared at the drop of blood in a daze for a while before wiping it with a brocade handkerchief. Her complexion had returned to normal. Who says I'm wasting time with him? I just haven't found the right one. Haven't found the right one? You've been surrounded by so many talented and handsome men these past few years. How can you say that you haven't found the right one? Chu Qingyin looked at her in disbelief. Don't tell me you don't like men. Cheng Yin Luo rolled her eyes. What are you thinking? This kind of thing depends on mutual affection and fate. How can you just settle for someone? All right, I have nothing to say to that. Chu Qingyin sighed in her heart. In the eyes of outsiders, she was just running away. She was avoiding avoiding the past, but not willing to face the future. Such feelings were contradictory, but the crux of the problem was there, and no one could solve it. She wanted to be treated wholeheartedly, but in Ethereal's heart, there was also a sense of responsibility. 6 years plus 4 years was already 10 years. 10 years was such a beautiful time for a woman, but she had wasted it on something that wasn't waiting. Chu Qingyin didn't know what she was waiting for. Was she unwilling to give up, or was she unwilling to give up? Chu Qingyin felt uncomfortable every time she saw the two of them getting along with each other awkwardly. But when it came to matters of the heart, outsiders couldn't interfere. By the way, did you dress up as a man again today to swindle people? Rumor has it that Thousand-Faced Red Fox is one of the 8 most handsome men. If outsiders know that Thousand-Faced Red Fox is just a little girl who is still wet behind the ears, I don't know how many people's eyes will pop out of their sockets. Cheng Yin Luo regained her vitality and said with a teasing tone. Chu Qingyin spread her hands and pretended to be a little annoyed. I don't know how I got on the list. I just saved a little girl who was almost hit by a carriage on the street. Word spread like wildfire, and I got on a list. Didn't that little girl say that she wanted to devote herself to you? Cheng Yin Luo seemed to remember such a thing. I think she was thrown away by a big ice cube. Chu Qingyin couldn't remember clearly. You're even jealous of a girl. Cheng Yin Luo couldn't help but sneer. You're so pretty, little girl. When you dress up as a woman, there are so many men kneeling under your skirt. When you dress up as a man, there are so many girls chasing after you. You're attractive to both men and women. Your big ice cube not only has to guard against men, but also against women. It's so cruel. She had to admit that the little girl had changed in the past few years. If she was a budding flower in the past, she was now a delicate peach blossom in full bloom. Her peach blossom was bright and dazzling. If she were a man, she would have taken action and taken such a beautiful girl into her pocket. Unfortunately, there was a very strong protector by her side. Chu Qingyin's face darkened slightly. Don't talk nonsense. My big ice cube won't do that. Our relationship is pure. Pure. Cheng Yin Luo seemed to have heard something funny. She covered her mouth and laughed uncontrollably, ignoring the mud on her hands. Chapter 565. Chu Qingyin felt a little uncomfortable from her laughter and couldn't help but push her shoulder. What's so funny? But it was as if Yin Luo's laughing acupoint had been pressed, and she couldn't stop laughing. Chu Qingyin could only stomp her feet and leave in a huff. Really, I'm not going to talk to you anymore. Cheng Yinluo looked at the little girl's indignant and somewhat fleeing figure and couldn't help but curve her lips again. In the eyes of outsiders, such a clever and cunning person seems to become a different person when she talks about Xiao Su. TSK, TSK, TSK. If that ranking person saw this scene, would he still call her the thousand-faced red fox? These two people's status was so confirmed, and they were clearly a couple. But these two people were able to maintain their relationship from 4 years ago until now. Above friends, but not yet lovers. However, these two people probably didn't realize that they were more intimate and sweet than ordinary husband and wife. It was just that they were already used to it, as if they were still in the circle from 4 years ago and hadn't jumped out yet. At this time, there needed to be some kind of collision. Only by shattering it could the two of them see each other clearly in the hazy mist. However, the little girl's question had indeed touched her heart. What was the point of waiting? Perhaps it had already become a habit. She smiled bitterly. Perhaps there had to be someone who was more outstanding than him and understood her better than him to move her heart. Otherwise, she wouldn't be willing to give herself to another person so easily. She rubbed the wound on her fingertip. Although it was small and couldn't be seen, it hurt. It was like there was someone in this world. Although you didn't see him, he still existed in your heart and made you feel pain. A few days passed in a flash. The spring flood came as scheduled. Those few days were rainy and torrential. The source of Luo River came from a high mountain on the border with Junlan. The snow melted and large amounts of snow water flowed into the river, causing the water level to rise. The water was so fierce that it almost caused a flood in 2 days. Fortunately, we used the little princess method to open up a river channel and diverted a portion of the water from the middle reaches of Luo River to the wasteland. That's how we managed to disperse such a large amount of water. Otherwise, with the ferocity of this spring flood, even if we increased the height of the dam, it would still be destroyed. Hualing had just returned from Luo River. When he spoke about this matter, his tone was a bit emotional. At this time, everyone was discussing the spring flood in the conference hall, and Hualing was the first to speak. Turin nodded. If it weren't for the little princess's idea, we would have suffered a great loss this spring. Not only would the people's houses be destroyed, but this year's harvest would also be affected. Chu Qingyan was a little excited at the high praise from the crowd. However, she was still very calm on the surface because she wanted to show that she was neither arrogant nor discouraged. The spring flood had passed in 2 days. After yesterday's high tide, it would gradually decrease in momentum from today onwards. Once the front was stabilized, there was no need to worry about the back. Arrest all the officials responsible for building Luo River's dam and interrogate them. Make them spit out all the money they took from the people. Xiao Su's expression was a bit heavy at this time, and his tone was stern. Because a few days ago, when they were preparing to increase the height of the dam, they suddenly discovered that the construction of the dam had been shoddy. The impact of the river 2 years ago had already caused cracks to appear. It was already lucky that it hadn't collapsed before. This year's spring flood was expected to be fiercer than the last 2 years. This dam couldn't withstand it all. When the time came, as long as one side collapsed, it wouldn't only affect the people downstream of Luo River, but also the entire city. Therefore, in those few days, the master didn't have a good rest at all. He was in full command to urge everyone to rebuild the dam and strive to get this done before the high tide. Then, after the crisis passed, he would come back and interrogate them one by one. As Xiao Su's assistant, Lu Rue immediately stepped forward to accept the order. Lu Rue used to be Xiao Su's strategist. Now that Xiao Su was in charge of the fief within 100 miles of Lian City, he could appoint people at will. Lu Rue had previously been by his side, giving advice, and his performance was outstanding. It could be said that he was an expert in planning and a talent with long sleeves. Therefore, Xiao Su arranged for him to be the Minister of War to assist him in managing the fief. And in these few years, Lu Rue didn't disappoint him. He managed all the big and small affairs of Lian City in an orderly manner. Therefore, Xiao Su basically handed over all the matters to him. After Xiao Su finished assigning tasks, the officials who had received their orders in the meeting hall all left. At this time, only Chu Qingyan and Xiao Su were left. I didn't expect that we would take on such a big mess. Chu Qingyan sighed. When she first arrived, her eyes were filled with desolation. She was stunned and thought that she had come to an isolated island. She was prepared to survive. It could be said that it was a place where chickens lay eggs and birds didn't shit. Fortunately, they had slowly changed everything here step by step. Of course, the investment was huge. Chu Qingyan recalled that she had spent a lot of money to build the dam a few days ago, and her heart ached. I think you're quite happy with yourself. Xiao Su glanced at her before he picked up the brush. She had been running around with him all day long. If it wasn't building the city walls, it was rebuilding the dam, and it was patrolling the fief. He had never seen her complain about being tired or suffering. Chu Qingyan laughed when she heard that. Don't tell me you're going to cry. Even if you cry until you're blind, it's still the same. It can't be changed. It's better to transform it properly. Xiao Su nodded. You're aware. Chu Qingyin smiled complacently. Of course. After speaking, Chu Qingyin suddenly remembered that she had to compete with Jean Xian in the afternoon. Just as she was about to get up and leave, she felt a warm current flowing out from her lower abdomen. Following that, her waist had been sore for the past 2 days. Her waist went soft, and she almost couldn't stand properly. Xiao Su, who was sitting behind the desk, felt that something was wrong with her. What's wrong? No, no, no. Chu Qingyin held onto the back of the chair and immediately denied it. She was done for. She had a bad premonition. Could it be that her period had come? It was said that women in ancient times usually had their period at the age of 14 or 15. She was already 15 now, so it should be about time. A few days ago, her mother had asked her about it. She didn't expect it to be so soon. However, Chu Qingyin comforted herself. Could it be that she was scaring herself? However, as if to verify her thoughts, a warm current flowed between her thighs. It felt sticky. She had experienced this strange feeling when she was 15 or 16 in modern times. It was too familiar. No, she had to leave this place quickly. Otherwise, if she was discovered by the big ice cube, she would be embarrassed. Big ice cube, I have something important to do. I'll leave first. Just as she was about to leave quickly, a thunderous voice sounded from behind her. Wait. Chu Qingyin's feet instantly froze, but she didn't dare to turn around. What's the matter? Are you injured? Xiao Su furrowed his brows and looked at the figure that suddenly tensed up. He smelled the thick smell of blood in the air, and his face suddenly sank. Chapter 566. When Xiao Su's words fell, Chu Qingyin's entire body froze in place. Big ice cube, can your nose not be so sharp? Let me go. I want to dig a hole and hide in it. The smile on her lips had already stiffened. At this time, she could not move her body much because her first period was too strong. Also, her abdomen was filled with pain and her face was starting to turn pale. So Chu Qingyin did her best to maintain her current position. She coughed to cover it up. No, nothing. Maybe you're wrong. I'm going back to my room now. I'm a bit tired after running around all day. After saying this, she wanted to slip away. But who could tell her who this wall that suddenly appeared in front of her was? The meat wall in front of her coldly said, Don't lie to me. Did you get hurt from fighting with someone again? Chu Qingyin was embarrassed. He felt like she only knew how to fight with people when she went out. I'm really fine. Maybe it floated in from outside. Chu Qingyin's head was filled with black lines as she tried to argue. Also, why was she discussing this with a man? But an explanation was a cover-up, and Xiao Su didn't believe her. The smell was getting stronger and stronger, and it made him frown deeply. He was about to grab her shoulder to check, but she quickly slipped away. Big ice cube, don't worry. It'll be fine in a few days. She let out a sigh of relief that she had successfully escaped. Then when she prepared to sneak away, she felt a sharp pain in her abdomen. She felt dizzy, and then she fell unconscious. Xiao Su reached out to catch her unconscious body. He found that her face was terrifyingly pale. Without caring about anything else, he immediately carried her into the room. When he went out, he ran into Huoling. Xiao Su immediately ordered in a deep voice, Call Miss Chung. Huoling saw the unconscious little princess in his arms and the bloodstains on his master's sleeve. He was so scared that he immediately ran to call for someone. When Chu Qingyin slowly woke up, she found that she was lying on the bed in her room. At this time, she felt that her entire body was sore and her abdomen was still very uncomfortable. Then, she suddenly remembered what had happened before she fainted. She immediately buried herself in the blanket. How embarrassing. At this moment, a funny voice came from the side. Why are you hiding? Your big ice cube isn't here. I really admire you. Even a menstrual cycle can cause you to faint. Upon hearing Yin Luo's voice, Chu Qingyin pulled down the blanket to get some fresh air. Her face was still flushed. I don't know why my body is so weak. You haven't had a good night's sleep for the past few days because of the spring flood. You even went to Luo River to supervise the maintenance of the dam. How can your little body take it? Chung Yin Luo walked to her bedside and handed her a cup of warm brown sugar, ginger water. Chu Qingyin got up and took the bowl with both hands, trying to use the heat to drive away the coldness in her fingers. She defended herself. How would I know that this thing would come at this time? If I knew, I would have stayed at home obediently. TSK, TSK, TSK. Didn't we already foresee this? Don't you feel that your body is a little tired recently? Chung Yinluo looked at her with her arms crossed, her tone exasperated. I've been too busy recently and neglected it. Chu Qingyin felt that her scalp was a little tight. This is what happens when you don't take care of your body. Even we were shocked by you. I'm afraid that the entire prince's residence is talking about you fainting. Chung Yinluo looked at her and shook her head. The entire prince's residence? Chu Qingyin bit the edge of the bowl, her cheeks starting to redden again. His Highness knows that I fainted because she wanted to say something but stopped. How could Chung Yinluo not know what she was thinking? She said with some mischief. Of course he knows. You fainted, but you don't know how anxious your big ice cube was when he saw that you were unconscious. But when I found out the reason, I thought back to his face just now. It was as black as the bottom of a pot. When she rushed over, several plum blossoms had bloomed on Xiao Su's sleeves. She thought that something big had happened because Xiao Su's face was so ugly. When she finished examining him, she didn't know whether to laugh or cry. When she told him the truth, she realized that Xiao Su was stunned. Someone like him who didn't show his emotions was stunned. Then, an unnatural expression appeared on his face. Before she could see it clearly, she heard him instruct her to take good care of Qingyan. Then, he quickly got up and left. She felt like she was fleeing. So many emotions had happened to Xiao Su in such a short period of time. It was simply inconceivable. She had to admit that if there was someone in the world who could make Xiao Su's face change, it could only be this person. Chu Qingyin covered her head with the blanket again. I don't want to live anymore. I don't want to live anymore. How can I face people in front of His Highness in the future? No, it's not just Xiao Su. I'm afraid everyone in the prince's residence knows. Chung Yinluo unhurriedly added another stab. Chu Qingyin's shouting paused, and then she wailed, I don't want to live. Chung Yinluo couldn't help but laugh and shake her head. At this moment, Xiao Su had just changed his clothes when he heard a servant report that the young princess consort had woken up. If it was the old him, he would already be on his way to see her. But now, he was a little hesitant. At that time, he thought that she was injured. In the end, the answer was that she was having her period, which a woman of her age should experience. He was a little dumbfounded on the spot. He had never come into contact with a woman before. Almost all the people who served him since he was young were men. When he went out to train and lead troops in the military camp, it was even more impossible for there to be a woman by his side. So he didn't understand these things and was very unfamiliar with them. Now that he was told that his little fellow wasn't injured but had her period, he actually felt a little dazed and at a loss. This feeling was very unfamiliar. He didn't know how to adjust, so at this moment, he chose to properly sort out this strange feeling. Even if he hadn't eaten pork, he had seen pigs run. He more or less knew that this kind of thing was a very painful thing for a woman. This was because when the little fellow was in his arms, she was constantly frowning. Moreover, she was very uncomfortable. If she didn't take care of it well, she would have a lifelong illness. Xiao Su originally wanted to ask Chung Yinluo how to take care of the little fellow during this period of time. But when he thought of the teasing look she gave him today, he dismissed the idea. Then who should he ask for advice? Fire Spirit? Turin? With Spirit? They had been by his side since he was young. If he didn't know about this kind of thing, it was even more impossible for them to know. It was a pity that Water Spirit wasn't by his side. However, he couldn't bring himself to ask Water Spirit about this kind of thing. Xiao Su had never felt such a headache before. Moreover, it was because of a woman's affairs. Finally, he thought of someone who already had a family. He would definitely understand. That was Father Chu. Poor Xiao Su. In his desperation, he actually thought of Father Chu. Chapter 567. Xiao Su was a person who did what he said. He walked out the door and asked Wu Ling about Father Chu's whereabouts. When he learned that he was playing in Mu Ling's courtyard, he walked over without hesitation. Wu Ling saw that his master didn't go to the little princess consort's room and instead went to find Father Chu. He couldn't understand this, but when he wanted to follow, his master coughed and rejected him. Hualing was even more confused. Why did it feel like his master was going to be a thief? No, how could he think of his master like that? He must have been too busy these past 2 days. That's why he had such a misconception. It must be like that. While Hualing was thinking nonsense, his master had already left far away. The King of England had a courtyard that was specially designed for Hualing. This place also became a place that Father Chu frequented. The scene that appeared every day played out again. Ancestor, ancestor, that's not for weeding. AI, ancestor, you can't touch that. The servants were already used to this wailing and pleading, because every day, Lord Mu Ling would suffer from Master Chu's torture. Even though Lord Mu Ling was still young, his hair was about to turn white from worry. He could be seen pulling at his own hair every day, but that Master Chu never got tired of it. When Xiao Su came in, he saw this scene. Mu Ling, can this bird fly? After saying that, Father Chu's hand lost strength and the wooden bird was thrown out. That was just made. I haven't put on the wings yet. Mu Ling couldn't stop it in time and couldn't help covering his face. That flying bird landed beside a pair of boots that suddenly appeared. Master! Mu Ling didn't think that his master would come to his courtyard. Scallion in reverse. Father Chu happily ran over and asked in a serious and expectant tone, "Are you here to find Father?" Mu Ling couldn't help but roll his eyes. His master appeared here. Of course he was here to find him. How could he be here to find Father Chu? But he didn't think that the master in front of him would nod. Looking at Father Chu, who turned around and made a face at her before leaving with her master, Wood Spirit began to have the same misconception as Hualing. Something seemed wrong with her master today. Could it be that he had opened it the wrong way today? At this time, Xiao Su had brought Chu Machen's father to a pavilion in the mansion. "Sit." Xiao Su invited him to take a seat. Mr. Chu nodded and sat on the chair obediently. Then, he casually grabbed a piece of plum blossom cake from the table and took a bite. He spoke with a lisp. "I heard that when there's a flood, there'll be a lot of fish. Help me make a fishing net, and then you'll accompany me to fish, okay?" "It's not a flood. It's a spring flood." Xiao Su corrected him without thinking. "You can have the wood spirit make the fishing net for you. If you want to go fishing, you have to bring some guards. It's not safe to go alone." At this time, Xiao Su had something on his mind, so he didn't think too much and directly answered him. "Oh." Chu Machen's father was a bit disappointed. His son-in-law always refused to make him a fishing net. Even Little Blossom would catch mice for her father-in-law. However, Chu Machen's mood left as quickly as it came. He finished the cake in a few bites, then tilted his head to look at his distracted son-in-law in front of him. "Inverted Scallion, do you have something that you need Daddy's help with?" Xiao Su was a bit unaccustomed to Chu Machen's cleverness. "How did you know? Could it be that he was being too obvious? Because the weasel pays a New Year's visit to the chicken. He definitely doesn't have any good intentions." Chu Machen's father pretended to be serious as he told his son-in-law the proverb he learned from the wood spirit today. Xiao Su's eyes twitched when he heard this. It should be one doesn't visit a temple without a cause. It's all the same. Chu Machen's father chuckled as he waved his hand. Xiao Su didn't argue with him about the usage of this proverb. After thinking for a moment, he said somewhat bitterly, "Do you know what you should pay attention to when it's inconvenient to have your period?" "Ah." Chu Machen's father suddenly shouted, "Son-in-law, you're having your period?" Xiao Su felt like a flock of crows were flying over his head. Did he ask the wrong person? Was it too late to turn around and leave now? "No, it's Kai Kai." Xiao Su braced himself and said, "Kai Kai." Chu Machen's father stood up immediately. His face was full of surprise and shyness. Then he sat down again. Xiao Su couldn't understand Chu Machen's father's actions at all. Chu Machen's father suddenly said to him very seriously, "Let me tell you a piece of good news. My Kai Kai is all grown up. She can get married and have children. Daddy can hold a grandchild now." "Oh no, it's a maternal grandchild. That's great." Xiao Su didn't know that there was such a saying when women were having their period. He was very surprised. After Chu Machen's father calmed down, he secretly whispered into his son-in-law's ear, "Son-in-law, did you know? You can have children with Kai Kai now." Xiao Su was stunned. He was completely dazed by his father's words. What's wrong, Chumachin? You don't look right. Is it hot? Why is your face red? Chumachin's father looked at his son-in-law. His skin, which was usually as white as ice cream, was now rosy, like a peach hanging from a branch. Xiao Su stood up with a whoosh. Nothing. I suddenly remembered that there's something I haven't done yet. I'll go take care of it first. Hey. Son-in-law, don't go. I haven't told you what to pay attention to yet. Chumachin's father yelled at Chumachin's back, but he found that the more he spoke, the faster his son-in-law walked. Strange. There were no dogs chasing after him. Why was his son-in-law walking so fast? Chumachin's father couldn't understand, but he felt that it was a good thing that Kai was having her period. He had to report this to Dan Yang as soon as possible. Chumachin's father took the plate of pastries from the table and ran back quickly. At this moment, Xiao Su, who felt a rush of heat in his head, only cared about walking forward. When he came back to his senses, he found that he was already at the door of the little fellow's room. He suddenly didn't know how to walk. Xining came over with a bowl of hot porridge in her hand. When she saw His Highness standing at the door like a log, she felt a little strange. However, she suddenly remembered that the lotus seed soup was still simmering on the stove for her mistress. She immediately walked in front of His Highness and handed the plate in her hand to him. Your Highness, this is from mistress. She hasn't eaten much today. In the past, whenever her master had a headache or fever, it was always His Highness who was in charge of taking care of her. Therefore, Xining handed the plate over to His Highness and ran off on her own. Xiao Su subconsciously took the plate and looked at the hot porridge and vegetables in his hand. For the first time, he felt that he didn't know how to cook. Xining, are you outside? Help me get a hot water bottle. It's so cold. Chu Qingyin's weak voice came from inside, which made Chumachin's heart ache. Chapter 568. The weak voice inside made Xiao Su's heart tremble. Without thinking much, he carried the tray into the room. Chu Qingyin heard footsteps and thought it was Xining. She forced herself to sit up. This was the first time she had experienced what menstrual cramps felt like. In the past, whenever her roommates had menstrual cramps, they would be admitted to the hospital for intravenous drips. She was very glad that she could run, jump, and eat when her period came. But now that she was experiencing it, she felt as though she had been scooped out of cold water in the middle of winter. Where her hands slipped weakly and she almost fell, a pair of large hands suddenly reached out to support her shoulders and helped her lean against the bed wall. Chu Qingyin was a little slow to react. When did Xining become so strong? Then she lifted her head and was instantly shocked. A big ice cube? Chu Qingyin's shock did not escape Xiao Su's eyes. He coughed softly and got up. Are you okay? The moment he said that, the two of them instantly fell into an awkward situation. This was the first time Chu Qingyin felt shy in front of him. It was a little difficult to talk about such things. I am okay. I'm just a little weak and uncomfortable. I'm afraid of the cold. Chu Qingyin lowered her head. She was already roaring in her heart. God, what the hell was she talking about? She was actually discussing such things with a guy one day. Xiao Su originally felt a little unnatural, but when he saw her pale lips and pale face, he immediately abandoned those thoughts. He sat down and looked at her with furrowed brows. What can I do to make you feel better? She could hear the seriousness and concern in his voice. Although Chu Qingyin was still a little embarrassed, she thought about how he had seen her fall and make a fool of herself over the past 5 years. It was not that he had not seen her fall or make a fool of herself. It was just that this was the first time that she had done so. Her uneasiness faded a little. Give me that hot water bottle. It's just a bag filled with hot water. Chu Qingyin gestured with her hands. Today, she asked Xining to sew it according to the appearance of modern hand warmers. However, this girl just said that she was going to change the water, and now she was nowhere to be seen. Xiao Su looked around the room, but didn't find the geothermal water bag she mentioned. His face darkened. Is it really cold? He returned to sit in front of her after a fruitless search. Yes, it was winter when the snow was melting, and it was even colder than a snowy day. Chu Qingyin hugged herself under the blanket. Not only was she cold, but her waist was also aching. She did not know why. She had been practicing martial arts diligently for the past few years, but now she was very afraid of pain. The pain in her lower abdomen made her want to roll around on the bed. She did not even have the strength to answer. Xiao could clearly feel that she was holding on. He frowned and said, "I'll help you call Miss Chung." Just as he stood up, he felt his sleeve being tugged. He looked down and saw a slender, snow-white hand tugging at his sleeve. His gaze followed her hand and heard her say weakly, "No need. This is a very normal thing. It'll be over after a while." But when she thought about having to go through this terrible 7 days every month, Chu Qingyan felt like she had nothing left to live for. Xiao heard her say this and thought for a moment before sitting down again. He originally wanted to give her some porridge, but looking at the situation, it was obvious that she couldn't eat anything. He still had a lot of things to do, but when he saw her forehead sweating and her fingers gripping the blanket so tightly that the tips of her fingers turned white, he couldn't get up. The person in front of him usually had big, mischievous eyes, but at this moment they were squinting weakly. The luster was hidden, but it revealed a rarely seen weakness, which made people unable to help but feel pity for her. When he first met this little fellow, she was only 10 years old. After a year of twists and turns and 4 years of growth, she was now a graceful 15-year-old young lady. But the woman who should have been raised in the boudoir and enjoyed doting on it followed him and suffered all kinds of hardships, but he had never seen her weak and painful side. Now that he saw her forcefully enduring the pain, Xiao's heart unknowingly melted into a puddle of water. "Big ice cube, why don't you knock me out? That way I won't feel the pain." Chu Qingyan was in so much pain that she was about to lose consciousness. She didn't think that this kind of labor pain would be so unbearable, so she couldn't help but ask the person beside her for help. "Where is it cold? Where does it hurt?" His eyes were full of worry. "Stomach." Chu Qingyan took a long time to hear what he was asking. At this moment, she gritted her teeth and replied. Xiao nodded. Then he lifted her quilt and reached his hand in. Suddenly, Chu Qingyan felt that her stomach seemed to be touched by something warm. She subconsciously said, "A little lower, a little lower." "Yes, there, it's so comfortable." Xiao felt the soft skin under his fingers through the cloth, but at this moment he dismissed the distracting thoughts that shouldn't be in his mind. He wholeheartedly channeled his energy into his palm and then transmitted the heat to her body through conduction. Chu Qingyan was in a daze. She felt a warm flow from her lower abdomen into her body, and then it flowed through her entire body. The cold in her body was immediately dispelled, and she felt her whole body suddenly become warm. Seeing the colorless paleness on her face fade a little, and a faint red light appear, Xiao didn't stop and continued to transmit the heat to her. It wasn't until the pain on her face faded and her breathing became even that Xiao stopped. When he was about to withdraw, a pair of soft and boneless hands suddenly grabbed his hand, not letting him leave. Xiao's body was slightly startled, and he looked at the person on the bed with some surprise. He saw that she was already deeply asleep, and there was a sweet smile on her mouth. The corner of his mouth couldn't help but float up into a faint smile. But the touch from his hand made him a little absent-minded. He didn't know when it started, but he started to avoid arousing suspicion with the little fellow. In the past, she would often take his hand and stroll around, but now she had learned to keep a distance from him. Could it be that this was the difference between a child and an adult? Xiao was a little puzzled, but this kind of change was formed invisibly, as if the two were deliberately maintaining it. However, when he felt the little girl's rare attachment, Xiao felt a long-lost sense of satisfaction in his chest. This kind of feeling of being needed was really something that he hadn't felt for a long time. Although the little girl would still stick by his side like before, she rarely showed the dependence she had in the past. At this time, Turin's voice sounded from outside. "Master, there is an important matter to report from Fu Li mountain range." Turin's voice was a little anxious. Xiao didn't think much and withdrew his hand from her lower abdomen. He helped her adjust the quilt, and, after confirming that she wouldn't catch a cold, he got up and left in large strides. The person on the bed was sleeping soundly and only felt as if she was hugging a heater. Then she slowly drifted off to sleep. Chapter 569. When Xiao went out, Turin was already waiting at the door. "What's the matter?" Xiao asked. Lu Yu, who was in charge of mining in the Fu Li mountain range, sent someone to deliver a letter. "The person who delivered the letter is now in the meeting hall," Turin reported as he walked. Xiao nodded, and the two of them headed to the meeting hall. As soon as Xiao entered the meeting hall, a servant in green standing in the middle of the hall knelt down and saluted, "Your Highness." "Li sent you here?" Xiao sat down on the main seat and asked. "Lord Lu ordered me to deliver the letter. This is Lord Lu's token." As he spoke, the servant in green took out a jade pendant. Turin took it and returned it to him after confirming that there was no mistake. "Where's the letter from Lu Yu?" Xiao didn't beat around the bush and asked directly. Lu Yu was a young man who had sought refuge with Xiao 2 years ago. He was responsible, upright, and talented, but he hadn't been successful. Later, when he saw Xiao building roads and forests in Lian City, he sent an invitation to become his disciple. Xiao saw that he was bold and careful, so after a year of consideration, he put him in charge of mining in the Fu Li mountain range. Speaking of, they had accidentally discovered a large amount of ore buried under the mountain. It could be said that the Sichuan emperor had unintentionally planted a willow and it had turned into a shade. However, the ore wasn't easy to mine and it required a lot of manpower and resources. At the same time, to prevent the people in the capital from finding out, Xiao ordered people to mine in secret. In the past 2 to 3 years, they had only mined less than 1/5 of the ore. However, the mining of ore was the most important thing for them at the moment. This was because everyone knew that in the next 2 years, the Sichuan emperor would definitely do something. In order to support the fourth prince as the crown prince, he would eliminate dissidents. He would do anything, and the refining of ore was what they relied on. They could attack or retreat. Xiao didn't like to chase after fame and fortune, but it didn't mean that he was a paper tiger that could be bullied by others. Moreover, he had someone he wanted to protect. In the past, he could let them do whatever they wanted, and he could stay out of it. But now it was different. Even he couldn't stand their unrestrained ambition. As long as they didn't offend him, he could tolerate it. However, everyone knew that this seemingly peaceful situation would be broken sooner or later. Xiao opened the letter written by Lu Yu. It was written in code. If one wasn't taught by him, they wouldn't be able to understand the words. The letter said that they had discovered a very special type of ore in the past few days. It could be used to forge weapons that could be broken with a single blow. Furthermore, it was more durable than the previous weapons. They hoped that he would make a trip to the Fu Li mountains when he had the time. Xiao skimmed through the letter and handed it to Turin. After Turin scanned through it, he was pleasantly surprised. "Master, this is a good thing. If these weapons are sharper and more durable than the ones we use, then it would be like adding wings to a tiger for war." Xiao's face also showed a hint of joy. "That's right. We'll set off for the Fu Li mountains in 3 days." He wanted to see the results of the forging with his own eyes. "Yes, I'll go and prepare for the trip in 3 days." Turin accepted the order with a smile. After the people in the meeting hall left, Xiao stood by the window with his hands behind his back. Although it was already early spring, the breeze that came from the front was still mixed with the coldness of winter. It was drizzling, and the distant mountain peak was already shrouded in a thin mist, making it difficult to see its appearance. Xiao was no longer as happy as before. His expression was somewhat complicated. He looked in the direction of the capital with a heavy gaze. He hoped that one day they wouldn't have to meet on the battlefield. After all, the person holding the sword against him was his close relative. In a magnificent palace, palace servants went in and out. They were either carrying baths, clothes, or bath towels in their hands. Following the direction that the palace servants went in, there was a bathhouse surrounded by mist. A strong figure was faintly discernible in the mist. "You can all leave." After the palace servants put down the things in their hands, that person slowly opened his mouth. His voice was like the sound of ancient bells. It was slightly low, but there was a kind of deep and continuous pleasant to the ears. Yes, the palace servants heard and left in an orderly manner. After a while, the sound of splashing water could be heard. A head of black hair hung down from the back of his head. The ends of the hair fell into the water and slowly spread out, like a drop of ink falling on the surface of the water. Then it slowly spread out. That person cupped the water and splashed it on his face. Then he wiped it away with one hand. The water droplets slid down his bronze skin, rippling with an attractive luster. At this time, he closed his eyes as if he was enjoying this comfortable hot spring bath. His sculpted facial features were peerlessly handsome, but there was a faint arrogance between his eyebrows, as if he didn't put anything in his eyes. At this time, a figure silently appeared outside the screen. Then he half knelt and said, "Your Highness, I have something to report." The person bathing in the water slowly opened his eyes. Those deep blue eyes were as unfathomable as the sea. His voice was slightly raised, with a bit of cruelty and coldness. "Oh, about what?" "Xiao, the King of England." The person behind the screen immediately replied. That person raised his eyebrows and then got up from the water. Water splashed everywhere, like a beauty coming out of the bath. The water droplets covered his body bit by bit, but it was as if they couldn't stand still. The droplets slid down one by one, leaving long trails of water on his strong forehead and bronze skin. From his cheeks to his neck, chest, lower abdomen, his long hair hung down, and the water droplets at the ends of his hair fell drop by drop. And the water just happened to submerge his body, covering all the places that made people daydream. His sexy body made people spurt blood. Step by step, he walked to the shore. Then, with a stretch of his arm, the clothes that were placed on the chair by the shore flew over. Then, the wide clothes spread out like wings, draping over his bronze, slender body. At this moment, he had already jumped onto the shore. The clothes just happened to hang down, wrapping his entire body within. He stroked the long hair on his shoulders and then walked out. "Speak." He walked past the people kneeling on the ground and walked out of the hot spring room. When he reached the main seat in the hall, he sat down. That subordinate got up and followed behind him, then reported dutifully, "Your Highness, you've always asked us to pay attention to the Xiao King of England's movements. Now, a subordinate who's closely monitoring the King of England's movements has sent a secret report that the person in charge of mining in the Fuli mountain range sent a secret letter to Xiao a few days ago. We don't know if he found anything. I've specially come to report and ask you to make a decision." Xiao Emperor used the mining matter to send Xiao away in order to consolidate his position. This Xiao isn't stupid and knows how to retreat in the face of adversity. But this prince doesn't believe that he'll obediently be a sucker. Unless there's something in the Fuli mountain range that's attracting him. Otherwise, if the Xiao Emperor turns hostile in the future, he'll just be a fish on the chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered. The man curled his lips into a smile. "Then what does your Highness want to do?" The subordinate asked doubtfully. "This prince wants to personally make a trip to the Fuli mountain range." He said powerfully. He, Pang Huang, had long wanted to see that Sichuan god of war. Was this Sichuan god of war more powerful, or was his Southern Song war god better? Chapter 570. Chu Qingyan woke up after a good night's sleep and realized that she felt much better. But when she turned around, she saw her mother sitting on a chair and looking at her worriedly. Seeing that she had woken up, she hurried over. "Kai, how are you feeling?" Mrs. Chu's mother was full of worry. She smiled and said, "Mother, I feel much better. It's not that painful anymore, but I'm a little hungry." Xining, who was beside her, immediately went to the kitchen to heat up the food and bring it up. Mrs. Chu looked at her daughter, who had recovered, and heaved a sigh of relief. She said with some lingering fear in her voice, "Today, your father told me that you had fainted from the pain. I was so scared that I rushed over to take a look. But you were already asleep at that time, so I waited for you to wake up. It's all in the past. Other than feeling a little uncomfortable, I'm fine. I just didn't expect my first time to hurt so much." Chu Qingyan rubbed her nose. She really felt bad for making her family worry. Mrs. Chu poked her finger and said, "Why did you have to go through so much trouble?" Mrs. Chu couldn't help but poke her daughter's forehead with her finger. Her voice was full of pity and disappointment. "Who told you to go and see the dam in the heavy rain? You must have caught a cold. I've told you before to take good care of yourself during this period of time. Maybe your period will come. But you didn't listen to me and went on your own way. Just wait and see. The first time is very important. If it hurts, you will feel uncomfortable every month. You're asking for trouble." Although her mother was reprimanding her, she could hear the concern and heartache in her voice. She couldn't help but tilt her head and lean on her mother's shoulder. She said coquettishly, "Mother, I was wrong. I won't do it next time. In the future, I'll treat your words like an imperial edict and obey them." Mrs. Chu really couldn't do anything about her obedient and coquettish daughter. Just then, Xining came in with the food. "Master, you should eat the food while it's still hot." Chu Qingyan rolled her eyes and looked at her mother, who was still sighing for her. She immediately softened her tone and said, "Nyang Qin, I don't have any strength. Can you feed your daughter?" Chu Machen's mother couldn't help laughing when she saw her daughter, who was no longer a child, acting like a spoiled child and asking for food. However, her daughter had always been independent and self-reliant. As a mother, she had always been taken care of by her daughter. Now that she saw this side of her daughter, her motherly love overflowed. She said that her daughter wasn't shy and took the bowl and spoon from Chu Machen's hands. When Xining saw this scene, she couldn't help but cover her mouth and snicker, but she was glared at by her master. "Nyang Qin is so good." Chu Qingyan contentedly swallowed her first mouthful of porridge. Mrs. Chu smiled and shook her head, but she was very pleased with her daughter's praise. After finishing the bowl of porridge, Chu Qingyan still wanted more. Mrs. Xining wiped the water from the corner of her mouth with a handkerchief and seemed to have thought of something. She turned to Xining and said, "Go and boil a bowl of ginger water for Kai Kai." "Yes." Xining obeyed and left. When only the two of them were left in the room, Chu Qingyan looked at her mother with a smile. "Nyang Qin, you deliberately sent Xining away, didn't you? You mischievous girl." Mrs. Chu didn't deny it. She looked at her daughter, who was becoming more and more outstanding, and felt as if she was looking at herself when she was 15 or 16 years old. She felt a little emotional. "Kai Kai, do you know what it means when your period comes?" Mrs. Chu looked at her with a serious expression. It was rare for her mother to be so serious. She thought that her mother wouldn't ask such a question for no reason. Hence, Chu Qingyan stopped smiling and started to think about the answer to this question. However, she rejected all the answers. Finally, she shook her head at her mother. When Mrs. Chu saw this, she reached out and stroked her long hair. She said earnestly, "When your period comes, it means that our Kai Kai has grown up and is no longer a little girl. When a girl reaches this stage, her family can help her find a marriage partner. Then, with the help of her parents and a matchmaker, she can get married and raise her children." Chu Qingyan didn't expect her mother to be talking about this. She looked away unnaturally. "Nyang Qin, I'm only 15 years old. It's still too early for me to get married and have children. It's not early anymore. Usually, girls from other families are already married by this time. Your mother also married your father at this time." Mrs. Chu shook her head and explained, "But I haven't had enough of being single. Although getting married and having children is a big thing in life, I still have to have enough fun and settle down before I consider this." Chu Qingyan didn't expect that she would one day discuss this with her mother. She remembered that when she was in university, her father, who was far away in the army, asked her to bring his son-in-law for him to see. Unfortunately, she had never been in a relationship and didn't know what it felt like to be in love with someone of the opposite sex. Hence, she was still very shy to talk about this now. Mrs. Chu also couldn't bear to part with her daughter. However, she smiled and patted her daughter's hand gently. She said lovingly, "But other girls still have to find a marriage partner. We don't have to. The Emperor Emeritus's betrothal is quite good. His Highness is a good child. Nyang Qin is very relieved to hand you over to him. When you want to get married, let me know. I'll definitely arrange it properly for you." Chu Qingyan was in a daze. She didn't understand what her mother was saying at all. After a while, Mrs. Chu remembered that her husband was still playing with the kitten in the courtyard. She got up and let her have a good rest. Just as she was about to leave, Chu Qingyan heard a light sentence. His Highness waited for Kai Kai for 5 years. It wasn't easy. Did she open her ears in the wrong way? Why did she hear such strange words? Big Ice Cube didn't have that kind of feelings for her, right? It was just the feelings a big brother had for a little sister. She recalled the words she heard under the windowsill last year. It completely darkened her world. She ran her fingers through her hair. She felt that this matter was making her a little irritable, so she simply turned her grief and anger into appetite. Xining, I want to eat spicy chicken, spicy fish, vinegar pork ribs, mapo tofu, sour and spicy shredded potatoes. She blurted out the names of dishes one after another. During menstruation, the body's functions were depleted quickly, and it was easy for her to get hungry. Moreover, she could eat a lot of things that she didn't dare to eat on normal days. Most importantly, she wouldn't gain weight. That was why she didn't care about anything else and ordered so many dishes. Xiao Su was just about to enter when he heard her order. His brows immediately furrowed. You have to avoid certain foods during this period. You can't eat anything spicy. When Chu Qingyan saw him, she was reminded of what happened last year. Coupled with the fact that she wasn't feeling well, she became angry all of a sudden. You don't want me to eat? So I'm going to eat more. Haven't you heard that even rabbits get angry when they're hungry? Chapter 571. Chu Qingyan's rebuke surprised Xiao Su a little. People in power were used to controlling everything, and his starting point was for her own good. Hearing her words, Xiao Su's face turned a little ugly. As soon as his face darkened, Chu Qingyan's face became a little embarrassed. She coughed lightly to cover up her unkind tone. I just want to eat these things. You have to take care of me, a patient. You're already an adult. Don't you know how to take care of yourself? Xiao Su walked in front of her and looked at her condescendingly. Chu Qingyan raised her head to look at him. She felt very oppressed like this, and the trace of grievance in her heart began to grow. I could take care of myself. You don't have to worry about me, she said a little angrily. Very few people dared to provoke him to his face. Just as Xiao Su was about to reprimand her, he saw her stubborn little face turn pale, and the trace of unhappiness in his heart immediately dissipated. He remembered that Chu Yunqing's father had specifically told him that women were usually more irritable, easily angered, and unreasonable during these few days, just like menopause. That was why he had given him the 6-syllable mantra, telling him to be more forgiving and obedient. Although he didn't know what menopause was, the symptoms that Father Chu had mentioned were indeed verified one by one on the little fellow. But he had been humiliated by the little fellow. At this time, he wanted to speak to her nicely, but he couldn't bring himself to do so. However, when she lowered her head and looked so delicate, he really couldn't get angry at her. In the end, he could only compromise. If you want to eat those things, wait until you're better, then let the kitchen prepare them for you. Chu Qingyan thought that she had heard wrongly. She raised her head to look at him in disbelief. In the past, when she contradicted him, she was always reprimanded by him. When was there such good treatment as now? And he could even talk to her calmly. But I want to eat now. Chu Qingyan pursed her lips. When people were uncomfortable, they would be more clingy than before. They would become more sentimental and fragile. Xiao Su frowned, but at this moment, he remembered Father Chu's 6-word mantra, be more forgiving and more obedient. You can eat, but you can only choose one dish. Xiao Su gave in. Chu Qingyan immediately smiled. Okay, I want to eat spicy chicken. Yes. Everyone took a step back. This was how they had always gotten along. Coincidentally, Xining came in. Xiao Su told her to inform the kitchen, but told her to only prepare one dish a day. The rest of the dishes should be light and light. Although Chu Qingyan disagreed with Xiao Su's arrangement, a wise man submits to circumstances. If she resisted, everything would be ruined. Did anything happen today? Chu Qingyan held the hot water bottle and looked at him with her big wet eyes. Xiao Su had already sat down on the chair in front of her. When he heard her question, he reached out and smoothed out the creases on his knees. He said indifferently, "Take care of your body. I will take care of these things. I'm still your strategist. Don't separate public and private matters. Okay?" Chu Qingyan was a little unhappy. All these years, she had been by his side in men's clothing, acting as his strategist. So outside, they all knew his strategist, Chu Qingyan, but not Chu Qingyan. That was why she was on the 8 Great Handsome Men list. Thousand-Faced Red Fox? This title was not bad. She was the scheming and quick-witted Chu Qingyan. Hearing her say this, Xiao Su remembered that he was going to Fuli mountain range in 2 days. She would find out sooner or later, so he did not hide the discovery of the special mine from her. So powerful? If this kind of mine can be mass-produced, then our killing power will be several times greater than before. Chu Qingyan could not help but exclaim. On the battlefield, a soldier's ability was very important. However, divine weapons could allow them to unleash their abilities to the extreme. It was like adding wings to a tiger. Then, their fighting strength would greatly increase. Her eyes shone brightly, like a fox that had seen its prey. She was excited, and her appearance was very cute. Xiao Su saw this and could not help but smile. You can say that, but Lu Yu is not sure how many of these mines there are. This time, I plan to go and see for myself. Chu Qingyan could understand the importance of this mine to them. It was their current protective talisman. Sichuan Emperor did not know that he had accidentally given them a big gift, so not only did they have to keep it a secret, they also had to quickly mine it. Now, time was life. How much they had now, how much they could use in the future would represent how much bargaining chips they had on the table. All right, I'll go with you. Chu Qingyan hugged the hot water bag and decided with a smile. However, she did not expect Xiao Su to reject her. No, the Fuli mountain range has a complicated terrain. Moreover, it intersects with several countries. It's not convenient to travel. You should stay in Lian City and help me look after my fief. Are you worried that I will become a burden to you? Right now, my strength is on par with Turin and Hualing. I have no problem protecting myself. These few years of hard work and martial arts was not for nothing. Chu Qingyan puffed up her cheeks and snorted. He had seen her hard work these few years. Other girls were still sleeping in the morning, but she had already woken up early to train. At night, other girls had already fallen asleep, but she was still in the study room reading military books. His training method for her was based on Shaolai's. He did not slack off or show her any mercy because of her special status. Fortunately, she had never disappointed him. I'm not worried that you will be a burden, but I need someone to look after my fief and deal with some urgent matters when I'm not around. Actually, he was worried that there might be some accidents along the way. It would be safer for her to stay in her fief, and he would be more at ease. It's all right. Don't we still have Mr. Ruo and Lu Rue? I'll be more at ease if I leave it to them. Moreover, haven't we already taken care of most of the matters related to the fief? Chu Qingyan tried to persuade him. Xiao Su watched as she racked her brains to think of a way to make him agree. After thinking for a moment, he asked, "Do you really want to go?" Chu Qingyan was still racking her brains to think of a reason. When she heard his question, she immediately nodded vigorously. "I want to. I haven't even been to the Fuli mountain range before. I want to go and experience it first." Xiao Su suddenly remembered that he had promised her a trip to Jiangnan. In the end, he did not fulfill his promise, and he felt a little guilty. If it were not for the unforeseen event that caused him to change his plans at the last minute, perhaps they would already be traveling around the great rivers and mountains. Unfortunately, plans could never keep up with changes. All right, we'll set off in 3 days. Are you sure your body can take it? Xiao Su was still a little worried. Chu Qingyan patted her chest and promised, "No problem. This is a small matter. I guarantee that I'll be full of energy and full of vitality in 3 days." Xiao Su was amused by her appearance and shook his head in laughter. 4 years of growth might have changed her appearance and height, but there were some things that could not be changed with the passage of time. That was her nature. Don't forget your original intentions and stay true to yourself. Chapter 572. After deciding on the time to leave Lian City for Fu Li Mountain Range, Chu Qingyan instructed Xining to prepare the necessary items for the trip. It would take at least 7 days to travel from Lian City to Fu Li Mountain Range, so there were many necessary items to bring along. While Xining was tidying up the room, Chu Qingyan left the room and headed to Cheng Yinluo's garden. After a day's rest, she had regained her strength. Since she would be leaving Lian City for a period of time, she wanted to greet Yinluo. However, when she reached Cheng Yinluo's room and was about to knock on the door, she saw Cheng Yinluo packing. She forgot to knock on the door and went straight in. She asked in surprise, "Sister Yinluo, where are you going?" When Cheng Yinluo saw her, she continued what she was doing. "I'm going back to the medical center. Junior brother is sick. The season has changed recently and many people are sick. The medical center is too busy, so I have to go back." Chu Qingyan nodded and sat down on a chair. "When will you be back?" Cheng Yinluo paused and thought for a moment. "I'm not sure. I don't have any clue about your father's symptoms. The previous methods didn't work. When I go back, I'll check some medical books to see if there are any other methods." "Thank you for your hard work." Chu Qingyan thanked her sincerely. All these years, she had devoted herself to studying her father's illness. Although those methods didn't work, she had spent a lot of energy. "We're close friends, so why are you being so polite? If it weren't for you and His Highness, I'm afraid our medical center would have been unable to make ends meet." Their medical center wasn't established for the purpose of making a profit. They often provided free treatment and medicine to the people. It was all thanks to the support of Xiao Su and the little girl that they were able to survive these years. Therefore, the reason why she did her best to treat Chu Machen's father and spent so many years staying here was because they treated her as a good friend. Chu Qingyan chuckled. "Indeed, it's not our style to thank each other. By the way, do you need to bring anything to the medical center? Do you need financial, material, and manpower support?" Cheng Yinluo looked at her doubtfully. "I can understand financial and material support, but what the hell is manpower support? If you don't have enough people, we'll give you more." Chu Qingyan winked and giggled. "Who is it?" She had already guessed who it was. "Ethereal, our Xiao Lai Cavalry's #1 doctor. His hands are miraculous, and his medical skills are superb. He can bring the dead back to life, and he is also handsome and confident. What do you think of his skills?" Chu Qingyan strongly recommended. Cheng Yinluo rolled her eyes. "Cut out." Chu Qingyan followed behind her, unwilling to give up. "You don't like this, but there are other advantages. For example, I'll wash your clothes and cook for you on the road, lead your horse and guard you, eat, drink, and play. What about this?" Cheng Yinluo took a box of medicine from the cabinet and turned around to put it in her bag. She found her words funny. "I won't believe it, even if you beat me to death. Morongju was such a proud person. Would he do this for a woman? He didn't do it in the past, so how could he do it now?" Cheng Yinluo shook her head and tied a knot in her bag. She was almost done packing. "When are you leaving?" Seeing that she couldn't persuade her, Chu Qingyan gave up. She looked around her room and found that everything had been put away, so she asked. "I can leave after lunch." Cheng Yinluo patted the bag on the table, thinking if there was anything else she hadn't brought with her. "Okay, then I'll see you off in the afternoon." Chu Qingyan nodded. "No, I'll be back in a while, so you don't have to see me off." Cheng Yinluo shook her head. Then she seemed to think of something. "By the way, infectious diseases like the plague are prone to break out in spring. You should be careful." Chu Qingyan answered seriously. "I'll remember." After lunch, Cheng Yinluo carried her bag and was about to walk out of the room. She looked down and saw a figure stretched out on the tiles by the sunlight. She stopped and slowly looked up. Ethereal was standing in front of her against the light. "Are you coming to see me off?" she asked in a relaxed tone with a smile. Ethereal's eyes fell on her face greedily. Her bright and beautiful face had a kind of natural elegance. When she smiled, there was a faint tranquility in her expression. "No." He shook his head. Then, Cheng Yinluo was confused. If there was any improvement in their relationship over the past few years, it was that they were no longer strangers. They were just strangers in love. They greeted each other when they met, drank tea, and talked about medicine. They could face these things calmly. "I'll go back with you," he replied seriously. Chung Yin Luo was stunned, but he didn't seem to be faking it. She couldn't help but smile. Go back with me? What can you do? I think my medical skills are not bad. I can help with the diagnosis and treatment. Ethereal looked into her eyes and said slowly. Chung Yin Luo raised her eyebrows. The medical center doesn't have that much business. I alone am enough. My junior brothers are here too. I can wash your clothes and cook for you on the way. I can lead the horse and guard you. I can eat, drink, and play. I can do whatever you want. What do you think? Ethereal smiled. He wasn't disheartened by her rejection just now. Why did these words sound so familiar to Chung Yin Luo? And she felt that he seemed to be flirting with her in a serious tone. Her face couldn't help but darken. No need. Thank you for your kindness. Chung Yin Luo threw the bundle in her hand over her shoulder and prepared to walk around him. But as soon as she took a step forward, another wall appeared in front of her, and it was a white and shiny human wall. What do you mean by this? Chung Yin Luo stood still, looking displeased. I'll go back with you. Recently, there have been a lot of robberies on the road. I'm worried. Ethereal looked defeated. Why didn't the young princess consort's methods work? Chung Yin Luo's expression changed from displeasure to seriousness. She raised her head and looked into his eyes. They were deep and unfathomable, like an ancient pool. A few years ago, there was a plague in Gao City. Although I don't know how it ended, I heard that your master will be going to Fuli Mountain Range in 2 days. We might pass by there. Ethereal froze on the spot. So, are you sure you still want to go with me? Initially, she still had some hope in her heart. But when she saw the struggle in his eyes, her hope was extinguished. I'll send someone to protect you. He lowered his eyebrows and said, There's no need. I've climbed the mountain in the middle of the night to gather herbs and spent a night in a beast's den. What haven't I experienced? I've been alone for so many years. It's no big deal. Chung Yin Luo looked away when she said this. She felt her throat tighten. She didn't want to look at him anymore. She nodded at him, walked past him, and left the courtyard. 10 years ago, you left me because of your responsibilities. Can I still expect you to be like you 10 years later? Ethereal clenched the bundle on his shoulder. His eyes were filled with sorrow. I'm sorry, Xiao Yan. Chapter 573. Chu Qingyin, who was standing in the corridor, saw the two of them brushing past each other. Her heart was as anxious as an ant on a hot pan. She immediately walked in front of Ethereal and said resentfully, What are you standing there for? Hurry up and chase after them. But Ethereal's eyes were filled with hesitation. Aren't you and Master going to Fuli Mountain Range? This subordinate. There are no buts and no obligations. Your main task now is to chase after the person you want to chase. Your Highness isn't made of paper and won't get hurt so easily. If his safety requires you to sacrifice your happiness, I don't think he'll agree to it. Go, this is an order. Chu Qingyin couldn't bear to see him dilly-dallying and immediately urged him to go. Ethereal nodded fiercely and immediately chased after them. Chu Qingyin watched Ethereal's departing figure and sighed in relief. You two have to work hard. In the blink of an eye, Chu Qingyin and Xiao Su were also about to set off. Liu said in the letter that they needed more time to be studied, so they didn't need to be too anxious. Thus, Xiao Su planned to take Chu Qingyin to slowly tour the area and take a look at the changes in the fief and the people's situation. Because they didn't need to rush, Chu Qingyin and the others dressed up as visiting relatives. When they just set foot on the road, the continuous spring rain of March finally stopped and the sky cleared up. Chu Qingyin felt that her face was too eye-catching and was afraid of being recognized, so she put on the silver mask that Xiao Su used to wear. She wore a tight outfit and instantly transformed into a silver-masked youth. She felt that she was so handsome. However, Xining and the others didn't feel that way at all. This made her feel very frustrated. Chu Qingyin rode her horse and walked in the group, while Xiao Su wore a white curtain hat and sat in the carriage. Chu Qingyin became his follower, and he was the main person. However, Chu Qingyin didn't mind at all. The spring breeze in March was warm, and the weather was very warm. It was very suitable for traveling. As a matter of fact, not long after they left, they ran into two groups of people. Little brother, Where are you going? One of them shouted loudly at Chu Qingyan. It seemed like she was treating her as the person in charge of their team. Chu Qingyan looked at this group of people. Although their clothes were not luxurious, they were not ordinary either. There were 2 carriages and 3 or 4 servants. She replied with a smile. Our young master wants to take advantage of the spring scenery to go out for a walk. He doesn't have any special plans to go anywhere. Where are you going? We're going to Li City to visit our family. Our madam and 2 young ladies are sitting inside. The person who shouted just now rode a horse to Chu Qingyan's side. Although he was in his 30s, he looked very simple and honest. Seeing that he was honest, Chu Qingyan couldn't help but nod. We will also pass by Li City. That's great. We can travel together and take care of each other. I heard that there will be a lot of bandits along the way. The more people we have, the more courage we will have. After Lu Shi finished speaking, he asked happily, My name is Lu Shi. How should I address you? Chu Qingyan readily replied, This one is Chu Qingyan. Lu Shi looked at the youth in front of him. Although he was wearing a mask, he gave people a very comfortable feeling. His temperament was very noble, and he was very approachable. He started chatting with him. Chu Qingyan found out from him that their master's surname was Lu, and he was a steward. This group of people was going to Li City to seek refuge with their master. Their master was working as an advisor in the county government of Li City this year. As soon as he settled down, he asked his madam to move the family to Li City. Chu Qingyan also found out that the master of the other group of people was surnamed Yang. They were going to Fu City and would also pass by Li City. However, Lu Shi expressed that he didn't know why they were going to Fu City. Because he vaguely felt that this group of people didn't seem to be very friendly, Lu Shi didn't ask for a snub. Lu Shi said a few words before he was called back by his master. Chu Qingyan could tell that compared to the lively Lu family, the Yang family was more silent. They were dressed gorgeously, and they also had 2 carriages with more than 10 guards. The carriages were very spacious, and she could vaguely hear the girls talking inside. Chu Qingyan thought that the people inside should also be women, but each of them had their chins slightly raised, as if they were very disdainful of the 2 groups of people beside them. However, this had nothing to do with her. In any case, this group of people was going on the road. It didn't matter if there were more people on the road. They didn't interfere with each other. After walking for an entire morning, because this road was in the middle of nowhere, they could only find a spacious place to rest and have lunch. Thus, the 3 groups of people coincidentally stopped at the roadside lawn. The people in the carriages also came out one after another. Because the 2 groups of people in front were walking at the front, Chu Qingyan saw the Lu family of 3, Madame Lu and the 2 young ladies. Madame Lu was wearing a Rui pattern dress. Her face was full of happiness, and her figure was a little plump. She looked to be in her 30s or 40s. Beside her were 2 young ladies. One of them was wearing a colorful flying flower dress. Her appearance was delicate and pretty. The other was wearing a standing water pattern dress. Her appearance was beautiful. The 2 young ladies were around 13 or 14 years old. Chu Qingyan's gaze fell on the other side. Madame Yang was wearing a white gauze dress. Her skin and figure were well maintained. She looked to be in her early 30s. Beside her was a young lady around 14 or 15 years old. That young lady was wearing a colorful 8-jewel standing water pattern dress. Her appearance was more outstanding than the 2 young ladies of the Lu family. Behind this young lady was a young lady with her head lowered. Her clothes were not as exquisite as the previous young lady. Her clothes were not old or new, and she looked a little timid. After observing, Chu Qingyan walked to the side of the carriage and waited for the people inside to get off. Thus, when Xiao Su lifted the curtain of the carriage, he saw a white wrist in front of him. He couldn't help but frown and look at her. He only heard her say, "The people outside all think that I am your servant. Why don't we put on a show until the end?" Xiao Su smiled and obediently put his hand on the back of her hand. Then they got off the carriage. Although they were the last to get off the carriage, Turin and the others had already led the carriage to the side and tied it up. The ground was also covered with a thick layer of cloth. In order to avoid being too conspicuous, They didn't take out the folding chairs and tables. Instead, they took out the dry food that they had prepared this morning. So when the other two groups of people sat down, Chu Qingyin and the others had already started eating lunch. Chu Qingyin chewed on a sesame seed cake. Out of the corner of her eyes, she saw that the Yang family took out a few delicately made food boxes. Then, she took out the pastries from the boxes. It could be seen that they were all food that looked good. Chu Qingyin politely declined the food that Lu Shi sent over. She smiled and said that she had brought a lot. Halfway through lunch, the young lady of the Yang family said something to Madame Yang. Madame Yang looked at Chu Qingyin and the others. Then, she called her bodyguard and said something. Then, the bodyguard walked towards Chu Qingyin and the others. Chapter 574. That guard walked straight in front of Xiao Su, his tone carrying a bit of arrogance as he said, "We are the Yang family of Father City. Our madam heard that you will be passing through Li City, and since it's on the way, why don't we travel together? If we meet any bandits, we can take care of each other." Chu Qingyin blinked as she looked at that guard, who gave him the guts to actually bypass her, the manager, and directly look for her family's big ice block. If her family's big ice block froze someone to death, she wouldn't be responsible. After that guard finished speaking, he found that the person in front of him didn't pay any attention to him at all, and just continued to sip his tea. The guard was a bit impatient. Their madam had sent him over to inquire, which meant that she thought highly of them, but he didn't expect that he would receive this kind of treatment. Just as he was about to make a sarcastic remark, the person who was immersed in his tea slowly raised his head. Although he was wearing a veil, he could faintly feel the sharp gaze under the white veil. That guard couldn't help but take a step back. Even if the person in front of him was sitting, and he obviously had the advantage when he was standing, he still felt that he was a bit shorter. Chu Qingyin saw that the bodyguard had been defeated by the big block of ice, so she slowly walked over. This big brother, since it's on the way, traveling together isn't a bad idea. This one will agree on behalf of our young master. But our young master doesn't care about matters. If there's anything in the future, you can directly communicate with this one. Chu Qingyin held back her laughter and expressed her goodwill. Since they were in the same line of work, it was always good to have one more friend. That guard saw that Chu Qingyin gave him a way out and immediately stepped down, but his tone carried a bit of anger. If there's any trouble that you can't solve, you can look for our Yang family. Goodbye. After saying that, without waiting for Chu Qingyin's response, that guard left in high spirits. Like servant, like master, like master. It's fine if we don't make friends with this Yang family. Turin said from the side. That's right. It seems like we have to go up and trouble them. Do we look so weak that we can be bullied at will? Huoling pretended to be weak as he twisted his body, speaking in a very disgusted manner. Chu Qingyin was amused by the words of these two people. Turin and Huoling's words were indeed reasonable. Just now, the Yang family had sent a guard to contact them. It should have been because they saw Turin and the others' strong bodies, quick work, and well-trained training. They thought of the dangers along the way, so they took the initiative to speak. However, that guard's face was filled with contempt, making people unable to get close to the Yang family. The Lu family was more pleasing to the eye, so Chu Qingyin asked Jin Xin to send some Rujiamos to the Lu family. Reciprocity was the only way to maintain a lasting relationship. After the items were delivered, Lu Shibian came over to express his gratitude. Little brother Chu, my family's madam and young lady, asked me to come and thank you. They said the Rujiamo was delicious. Thank you for your kindness, Lu Shi said with a silly smile. Chu Qingyin waved his hand. It's good that you like it. There's no need to be polite. With 3 groups of people traveling together, Chu Qingyin only sent things to the Lu family and didn't give anything to the Yang family. When the Yang family saw this difference in treatment, their faces became ugly. Chu Qingyin rubbed his nose. Look at how you guys are eating so delicately. How could you look down on our crude Rujiamos? However, Chu Qingyin had seen many people like this before. They felt that their presence was too strong, like they would be cheered and applauded when they walked on the road. That's right, you guys keep talking about bandits. What's that about? Although Chu Qingyin had never taken this matter to heart, when she heard the Lu family and the Yang family mention it, she couldn't help but take it seriously. When Lu Shi heard her question, he explained, "This road has never been peaceful to begin with. In the past, there was no one to manage it, so the people who did not have a good harvest and could not afford to pay taxes formed factions and became bandits. I heard that 7 years ago, these people even robbed official silver. In the past 2 years, these people have become even bolder. In broad daylight, they even dare to come out and kidnap passing merchants and passersby. This humble one heard that a month ago, a family was kidnapped and murdered on the road ahead. Even a 3-year-old child was not spared. Not only did they rob money, but they also took women. All the pretty girls were kidnapped and brought to the mountain stronghold." Lu Shi sighed. "So this time, my family's madam had no choice but to hire a few guards, hoping that they can pass through this road safely." Chu Qingyin heard Lu Shi's words and frowned deeply. The authorities don't care? Why would the authorities care about this? Rumor has it that the officials are colluding with the bandits. Who knows? Lu Shi shook his head, looking resigned to his fate. After Lu Shi left, Chu Qingyin returned to Xiao Su's side and repeated Lu Shi's words. Then she said, "Big ice cube. Why didn't we know about this?" None of the subordinates reported it either. The area from Lianxing to Fuli mountain range is vast but sparsely populated. The land is barren and there isn't much harvest. So, the imperial court rarely spends their energy here. When I came here, those officials thought that I was sent here because I lost my power, so they didn't take me seriously. It's not impossible that they neglected their duties, didn't report what they knew, or colluded with the bandits. Xiao Su's tone was indifferent. The people he brought with him had basically been on the battlefield. They were still lacking in political management, so there were these loopholes. Then what should we do now? Chu Qingyin understood the meaning in his words. It was as if a tiger that had fallen to the plains would be bullied by dogs. Regardless of whether or not these local officials were colluding with the bandits, it was a fact that they didn't take Big Ice Cube, the king of the fief, seriously. Let's wait and see. If we encounter any bandits, we'll deal with them. We'll deal with them when we reach Li City. Xiao Su pointed at the Rujiamo in front of him, indicating for her to eat. Chu Qingyin nodded, took the Rujiamo, and put it in her mouth. In fact, she very much hoped to encounter these bandits. Then, she could take care of them in one fell swoop to prevent future trouble for the people. After lunch and a short rest, the 3 groups set off at the same time. Because Chu Qingyin's group was relatively close to the Lu families, Lu Shi came over again. Chu Qingyin felt that this person was quite talkative and as honest as his name, so she started chatting with him. After Lu Shi talked about a few interesting things about the farmers, he suddenly spoke in a small voice. "Little brother Chu, your family's young master seems to be a man of few words and doesn't seem easy to get along with, but his temperament is very good. He seems like the young master of an influential family." Lu Shi rubbed his head as he spoke honestly. Chu Qingyin smiled when she heard this. He really doesn't talk much, but he isn't hard to get along with. Her family's Big Ice Cube was a bit quiet, but that depended on the person. If it was her, he wouldn't stop talking once he started lecturing her. At this time, Turin suddenly came over to say that his master was looking for her. Chu Qingyin nodded to Lu Shi before riding her horse back to the carriage. She asked, "What is it, Big Ice Cube? Stay by the carriage. Don't keep talking to unimportant people." The person in the carriage spoke in a somewhat depressed tone. Chu Qingyin tilted her head to look at Hualing in confusion. What was with his highness? Hualing spread his hands. He might be jealous. That shouldn't be possible. Lu Shi was old enough to be her father. Moreover, she was dressed as a man, all right? She didn't understand Big Ice Cube's world. Chapter 575. The road ahead was rather uneven. The Lu clan and the Yang clan moved slowly. However, even though Chu Qingyin and company were dressed in low-key attire for this trip, their carriages were simple and unflashy. Traveling on these roads was as easy as walking on flat ground. The Lu family was barely able to maintain their speed, but the Yang family slowly fell behind. When they rested for the first time in the afternoon, the Yang family sent people over. They first went to the Liu family and then came to Chu Qingyin's side. Perhaps it was because they had suffered in front of Xiao Su before, so the guard came to find Chu Qingyin. Because our three masters are all women and can't handle the bumps, I hope everyone can match our speed. After all, it will be safer for you to travel with us. Towards the Yang family's guards in politeness, it was as if others should accommodate them. This made Chu Qingyin knit her brows a bit, but seeing the Liu family agree, she did not refuse. If they did encounter bandits along the way, then they had to protect the safety of the citizens. Seeing such rude people, my hands are a bit itchy. Hualing pressed his fingers together, and the sound of slapping rang out. Turin looked at him. Restrain yourself a bit. A little impatience will spoil great plans. We'll deal with them later, Hualing said with a snort. Matching the rhythm of the other two groups, Chu Qingyin's group also slowly slowed down. The three groups walked into the evening without any danger. Everyone stopped to rest in a forest. The three bonfires were quickly lit. Hualing and the others had a clear division of labor. Hualing led people to hunt, and Turin led people to set up camp. The Liu family and Yang family saw that these people were well-trained and did things in an orderly manner. They didn't need any instructions from their masters to know what to do, so the masters of the two families were filled with envy. Very quickly, Hualing came out with a pheasant in one hand and a rabbit in the other. The subordinates behind him also caught a few fish. There is a river behind us. We're quite lucky. There are quite a few fish. Hualing smiled as he walked over. The prey had already been processed and could be roasted over the fire. This time, Chu Qingyin had asked Xining to bring a lot of seasonings, which came in handy at this time. When Turin and the others were on the battlefield, they often roasted animals outside. But after all, they just wanted to fill their stomachs. They didn't care about quality, so Chu Qingyin and Xining took over the task of roasting animals. The aroma of the meat wafted far and wide. The Liu and Yang families ate the food brought out by their own families, and they felt that their mouths had no taste. Seeing this, the young miss of the Yang family couldn't take it anymore and ordered her family's guards to go into the forest to hunt. Unfortunately, these guards didn't know how to hunt, but they couldn't disobey their master's orders and could only bitterly laugh as they entered the forest. After Chu Qingyin finished roasting, she placed the fattest rabbit leg and pheasant leg on a plate and had Hualing deliver it to Xiao Su. Then she cut a few pieces and had people deliver them to the Liu and Yang families. The Liu family happily accepted it and even sent people to thank them. However, the Yang family arrogantly rejected them, saying that their guards had already gone in a hunt. They would be able to catch some prey later and would also give them some roasted meat. Since they didn't want it, Chu Qingyin did not force them. She happily enjoyed their dinner. After an hour, the Yang family's guards came back, but it was a pity that their hands were empty. When the Yang family's young Miss Yang Yuhuan saw this, she remembered what she had said in front of Chu Qingyin's group. She instantly felt that her face was a bit ugly, and she immediately reprimanded the guards. Those guards were very helpless. They did not know where the prey came from. They searched the entire forest, but other than birds, they could not find anything else. Hearing the Yang family's young miss reprimand, Chu Qingyin smiled. She bit the wing in front of her and ate it with relish. Suddenly, the chicken neck on her plate disappeared and was replaced by a drumstick. Chu Qingyin couldn't help but look at the hand that had yet to be retracted. The firelight kept changing shapes, and when it shone on the white veil, there was a strange gentleness to it. Although she couldn't see his expression clearly, Chu Qingyin's heart was filled with warmth. "Thank you." She picked up the big drumstick and took a big bite. No one saw that under the veil, the thin lips revealed a gentle smile. After eating and drinking to her heart's content, Chu Qingyin stood up to check on the situation of the guards and took a walk. Walking to the intersection with the Yang family, Chu Qingyin suddenly heard Yang Yuhuan scolding another young miss of the Yang family. It seemed that Yang Yuhuan was the elder sister. "Xiaowan, are you deaf? This young miss told you to get warm water. Why are you pouring hot water for this young miss? Are you trying to burn this young miss to death?" "Elder sister, I'll go add some cold water for you. That weak young Xiao immediately picked up the basin and walked to the side. Her steps were unsteady, looking as if she could not stand up to the wind. Lucier followed her line of sight and saw this scene. He could not help but walk to her side and whisper, "I heard that this is the Yang family's legitimate eldest young miss, and that is the Yang family's concubine's second young miss. On the way here, I've seen Yang family's eldest young miss ordering the Yang second young miss around." Chu Qingyan nodded. In ancient times, the difference between the status of a legal wife and a concubine was not just a little bit, and the distinction between legitimate and concubine was even more clear. This was related to the inheritance of property and bloodline. However, this Yang family's eldest young miss was too overbearing. She had a servant girl by her side, but did not order her around. Instead, she loved to torment this concubine's younger sister. It seemed that she was not very broad-minded, but this was other people's family matter. Chu Qingyan did not pay much attention to it, just as she was about to turn around and go back to rest. At this time, Yang Xiaowan, who was holding a basin of water and walking over shakily, suddenly lost her footing and almost fell down. Chu Qingyan raised her eyebrows. With one hand, she quickly caught the basin of water that was flying in the air. Then, she spun around and landed to support Yang Xiaowan's arm, using her strength to support her body. She did not forget that she was currently a man, so when Yang Xiaowan steadied herself, she immediately let go of her hand and retreated to a safe distance. Then, she placed the basin of water in her hand in front of Yang Xiaowan. "Miss, please be careful when you walk." Everything happened in a flash. Everyone only saw a blur in front of their eyes, and the two people were already standing there steadily. Yang Xiaowan looked at the man in the silver mask in front of her and suddenly felt that her eyes were dazzling. She immediately lowered her head and reached out to take the basin of water. She stammered, Thank you, young master. It's nothing. Quickly go back, otherwise the water will turn cold." Chu Qingyan waved her hand carelessly and then quickly returned to her own camp. She walked quickly and did not see Yang Xiaowan's adoring gaze as she looked at her back. But just because she did not see it, it did not mean that no one else saw it. Xiao Su snorted coldly and muttered in his heart, "How could one moment be an uncle and the next moment be a young lady? How many people did this little guy provoke?" At this time, Chu Qingyan did not know about this. She looked around and pondered in her heart. The moonless and windy night was the best time to kill and rob. If there were really bandits, they would not let go of such a good opportunity today. About the little madman and little Qing, many people wanted to know what happened to this couple, and now it was time to unravel the mystery. After the incident in the Shang Kingdom's palace, Dugu Qing hugged Yi Lingfeng's body and cried. When Sheng Yinluo received the news of Yi Lingfeng's assassination, she immediately rushed to the Shang Imperial Palace. When she arrived at the main hall, she saw Dugu Qing, who was in a daze, and Yi Lingfeng, whose eyes were tightly shut. Sheng Yinluo's mouth twitched. "Little Qing, let go of young master Yi first. Otherwise, he can't breathe like this." I won't. Oh, what? He's still alive?" Dugu Qing blinked and looked at Sheng Yinluo innocently. "Yes, put him down quickly. Otherwise, even if the Daoyuo immortals arrive, they won't be able to save him." Sheng Yinluo squatted down and opened her medicine box. Dugu Qing immediately let go of Yi Lingfeng and squatted aside, looking at the person on the ground nervously. "He lost too much blood. He's lucky. The dagger sank into his back, but it didn't hurt his vitals. It has something to do with the position of his heart. It saved his life at the critical moment." Sheng Yinluo checked and began to stop Yi Lingfeng's bleeding. Dugu Qing took a deep breath. She was scared to death. But whether he can wake up or not depends on fate. Sheng Yinluo's words successfully made Dugu Qing's heart hang in suspense. "Lingfeng, I will definitely let you live." Dugu Qing reached out to hold his hand and said firmly in her heart. 7 days passed in the blink of an eye. Dugu Qing had already woken up. He took over the political affairs of his royal sister and began to take care of them. Dugu Qing didn't have to dress up as a man anymore. However, she stayed in the palace all day long, taking care of Ling Feng tirelessly. Ling Feng was unconscious for several days, but there were still no signs of him waking up. Duga Qing was so anxious that she couldn't eat or sleep well. One day, Duga Qing entered the palace and saw his royal sister wiping Ling Feng's cheeks. He was instantly jealous. "Royal sister, you haven't been so gentle with me in a long time." "I object." Duga Qing sat down at the side, looking very unhappy. Duga Qing glanced at him. "Are you saying that I'm usually very fierce?" Duga Qing choked. He didn't say that. However, his royal sister did look very fierce at this moment. "Once this person is cured, send him away. He doesn't have a legitimate status. It's bad for your reputation if he sleeps in your palace." Duga Qing seemed to have found an excuse and immediately raised his voice. "Royal brother, can you not be so childish? He's still injured." Duga Qing felt that her royal brother, who was so steady in front of outsiders, was always acting like a little brat in front of her. Duga Qing snorted. "Now you're scolding me because of him. Who knows what you'll do to me in the future?" "No, to get rid of future troubles, I have to send him away." Scold him? Childish? Her royal brother was indeed childish. "Little Qing can't bear to." A voice suddenly sounded between the two. "Who says she can't bear to? She can't bear to part with her brother." Duga Qing immediately retorted. However, the moment he said that, the two froze. The siblings turned to look at the person on the bed at the same time. They saw the person on the bed blinking his peach blossom eyes and smiling evilly. Duga Qing was pleasantly surprised. She then reached out to hold his hand, unable to speak. Duga Qing was happy at first, but when he saw his royal sister's excited look, he became unhappy again. "Ling Feng, once you're cured, immediately return to your Jiang country." "Your Highness Crown Prince, I'm your brother-in-law." "Be good, call me brother-in-law." Ling Feng acted like he didn't hear his unfriendliness and spoke to him like he was coaxing a child. Duga Qing's face instantly turned green. When he saw his royal sister wholeheartedly focused on Ling Feng, he suddenly felt like his own cabbage had been eaten by a pig. He stood up abruptly and left in a huff, not caring about the two anymore. The big light bulb finally left. Ling Feng breathed a sigh of relief and turned his gaze to the person in front of him. Looking at her haggard appearance, if someone didn't know better, they would think that she was the one who was injured. Ling Feng said emotionally, "Little Qing, I'm still alive. I'm not dead. I have eyes to see. I don't need you to explain." Duga Qing suddenly stopped crying and looked at him calmly. Ling Feng looked at her with a gentle expression. "Little Qing, I know I've made you sad. Can you give me a chance? But you've rejected me so many times before. Do you think I'll give you a chance so easily?" Duga Qing raised her brows and looked at him. "Then you could get it back from me with interest." He curled his lips. "With interest?" Duga Qing rubbed her chin and narrowed her eyes. "You've rejected me 72 times in this half a year. With interest, I'll count it as 100 times. So if you don't confess to me 100 times for me to reject, then there's nothing to talk about." She wouldn't let him get away with it so easily. Looking at the swaying finger in front of him, Ling Feng couldn't help but facepalm. Why did he provoke such a fussy girl in the first place? Forget it. Since I've chosen, I'll just accept it. Isn't it just 100 times of expressing my feelings? If I don't believe it, could it be that I'm an expert in love? But before that, I'll steal a kiss first. If the feelings were still there, even if they went around in circles, they would still meet again. Chapter 576. Turin and Hualing were responsible for taking turns to guard. Xiao Su and Chu Qingyan had already entered their respective tents to rest. Although it was already spring, the night in the forest was still very cold. Chu Qingyan wrapped the blanket tightly around herself. She was on high alert, not daring to fall asleep. In the other tent, Xiao Su opened his eyes and looked up. He could already hear the little fellow's shallow breathing. He couldn't help but recall the past. Back then, she didn't dare to sleep alone and climbed into his tent. Now that she was outside, she dared to bear it alone and didn't stick to him like before. This kind of feeling was somewhat gratifying, but also somewhat unpleasant. Clearly, watching the little fellow grow up was something he had always wanted to do in the past. But now that the little fellow had grown up, he fell into a kind of daze where he didn't know what to do next. He had always had a plan for his life, but it didn't work when it came to the little fellow. This kind of feeling made Xiao feel somewhat unfamiliar. It was as if something was excluded from his plan, which made him very unhappy. In the dead of night, from far to near, a series of footsteps quickly approached. Xiao put away his thoughts and narrowed his eyes. Chu Qingyan, who had just fallen asleep, was a very light sleeper. When she heard the movement, she immediately got up. Although there were many people coming, and they were all martial artists, Chu Qingyan and the others still noticed their movements. "Little Gongzi, they're here." Huoling's voice sounded from the tent. Everyone act according to the plan. Quietly wake up Lu Shi and the others." Chu Qingyan said to Huoling across the tent. She could feel that the Lu and Yang families were still in a deep sleep. Although waking them up wouldn't have much of a deterrent effect on the bandits, because the bandits knew that the three groups had a lot of people and still dared to make a move, it proved that they weren't timid. However, it was still to prevent the Lu and Yang families from panicking. "Haha, this road was opened by me. These trees were planted by me. If you want to pass this road, pay the toll. A fair and graceful lady is a good match for a gentleman. There's a good man here. Miss, stay." Chu Qingyan was about to step out of the tent when she heard those two rude words. She stumbled a little as she tried to leave the tent. Hooligans were actually not scary. What was scary was that hooligans were cultured. Although the last sentence wasn't very neat, it was still difficult for these uneducated people. At this time, the Lu and Yang family were already in a mess when the other party appeared. The women hugged each other and cried, while the guards trembled with fear as they held their swords and faced the burly men in front of them. Chu Qingyan walked out of the tent and squinted at the people in front of her. 30 to 40 strong men surrounded the three groups of people in a circle, holding large swords in their hands. The thugs all looked cold and emotionless, and the few people in the lead had peachy expressions. They kept looking at the ladies of the Lu and Yang families, causing the ladies to quickly hide behind their own families. Their bodies trembled and they looked pitiful, satisfying the self-satisfaction of these bandits. Chu Qingyan sized up these people. They didn't seem to be afraid of their faces being exposed at all. None of them covered their faces and openly revealed their true appearances. Chu Qingyan thought to herself, "Are these people really bold and fearless, or are they fearless?" One of the men with 2 scars on his face said, "You all know the rules of the underworld. Put down your weapons. Then the women will stand on one side and the men on the other. Put your belongings in the middle. Kill anyone who resists. Don't even think about it." One of the Yang family's guards said angrily. But in the next moment, one of the bandits standing beside them raised his large sword and slashed down. Just as the guard finished speaking, his head fell off and blood splattered all over the ground. The screams of the women rose and fell. The timid people present were so scared that their legs turned to jelly. As if they were used to the helpless screams of the prisoners, the bandits each revealed a sinister smile and then gave the order to start the robbery. Immediately, cries and pleas for mercy rang out. "Stop! Who gave you the courage to disregard human lives and disregard the law?" Chu Qingyan stood up and looked coldly at the few men in the lead. "Yo, there are still people who stand up for injustice? Arrogant brat who is still wet behind the ears. Are you still unable to see your situation clearly? Put down your weapons obediently, and I'll let you die a quick death later." The 2 scars on the man's face pointed the large sword in his hand at Chu Qingyan, his face full of disdain. He felt that this being's sprout-like figure was not enough for him to pinch with 2 fingers. Chu Qingyan sneered and didn't waste any more words with them. She immediately ordered, "Do it! Capture them alive!" "Yes." Huoling, who was standing behind her, led people to kill the bandits in all directions. Chu Qingyan pulled out her soft sword and jumped in front of the 2 scars on the man's face. Her sword was sharp, and she didn't show any mercy. The man immediately took 2 steps back and raised his sword to block. This unforeseen event caught everyone a little off guard. No one thought that Chu Qingyin and the others would take the initiative to attack, and they were so aggressive too. Each family's guards, protect your masters well. Chu Qingyin took the time to warn them because she found that these people were all stunned in place. If it wasn't for the fact that they were fighting, she would have face-bombed and sighed. Chu Qingyin's words made everyone come back to their senses, and they immediately gathered together. At this time, they saw a quiet place, and it was very abrupt. That was Chu Qingyin's master. She usually didn't come out of the carriage, and she was currently wearing a gauze hat with several guards following her. These people were all very tall and powerful. They were all dressed in black and had a fierce aura around them. Although the person in the lead was wearing a gauze hat, she had a kind of powerful aura that even the white gauze couldn't hide. Just standing there, she had a kind of casual and domineering aura. In this chaotic battle, this person's surroundings seemed to have become the safest place, and those bandits didn't dare to rashly approach him. Thus, everyone ran and crawled to his side, and those bandits who were chasing after him were all defeated by the mysterious man's guards as expected. Yang Yuan originally looked down on this group of people because from their clothes and carriage, they didn't seem to be from a large family. She had never placed these kind of poor people in her eyes. But she didn't know why. In this chaotic moment of life and death, this person stood there as if he was the only one in the world who was supreme and aloof from the world, making her unable to shift her gaze away. It was as if he was the only one shining in the whole world and everyone else was dim. Xiao Su felt that this somewhat irksome gaze, but he was already used to it. He couldn't take his eyes off the little fellow who was swimming around in the crowd. At this time, a gust of night wind blew and inadvertently blew up the white gauze under the gauze hat. Yang Yuan secretly stared at him at this time and just happened to see that white gauze lifted up, revealing that exquisite and perfect side profile. He was like a celestial being, and she was immediately stunned. Chapter 577. Suddenly, a scream exploded in Chu Qingyin's ears. She turned around and saw a wretched bandit reaching out to grab Yang Xiaowan, and there was no one around her to protect her. Chu Qingyin did not hesitate and waved away the broadsword in front of her. She jumped in front of Yang Xiaowan and kicked away the bandit's hand. Then, with a shoulder throw, the bandit was fiercely thrown to the ground by Chu Qingyin. Soon after, he was pressed down by Xiao Lai with his sword, unable to move. At this time, Chu Qingyin turned around to look at Yang Xiaowan, her thin shoulders trembling. "Miss Yang, are you all right?" The petite person raised her head in a panic, her eyes filled with fear. When she saw that the person standing in front of her was the silver-masked youth and not that terrifying bad guy, she immediately heaved a sigh of relief and then suddenly fell down. Chu Qingyin was caught off guard and immediately reached out to support her. She found that she had only fainted and was not injured. So she called over a servant of the Yang family to help her away and then continued to join in the fight. Although these bandits looked valiant and strong, their strength was not proportional to their appearance. In other words, they did not encounter the unarmed civilians of the past, but the fierce cavalry that had experienced hundreds of battles. Therefore, they were quickly defeated. 30 to 40 bandits did not escape the net and were all captured. Chu Qingyin kept her sword and then walked back to Xiao Su's side. When she passed by Yang Yuan, Chu Qingyin saw that her gaze was fixed on her big ice block and suddenly felt strange. But she did not think too much about it and said to the big ice block, "They've been captured. Let's go take a look." Xiao Su brought people over. "Who are you people? Don't you know my name? Tiger Wang's name? If you know what's good for you, quickly let us go and then take out all your belongings. I will let bygones be bygones." It was the man with the 2 knife scars who shouted. Xiao Lai kicked over, and the man who called himself Tiger Wang quieted down. But when Xiao Su walked in front of them, Tiger Wang started again. "Which dad do you belong to? Don't you know my relationship with Lord Wang?" Tiger Wang was not willing to give up. He felt that these people were not dressed as luxuriously as the Yang family, so they definitely did not have any status. He was only able to capture them because of his good movement skills. If these people knew his identity, they would definitely piss their pants in terror. Which road are we on? Turin, this man is asking where we are from. How should we answer? Hualing couldn't help but laugh when he heard this. This was his first time seeing such a muddle-headed person. She had already become someone else's prisoner, yet she still had the guts to shout at them. We are on the official road. Turin couldn't help but say. Wang Laohu was confused. On the official road? Is this a new one? Why haven't I heard of it? 7-Star kicked Big Dipper. Our master is here. Watch your mouth. These people didn't seem to be threatened by him, so Tiger Wang restrained himself. He settled for the next best thing and turned to negotiate with Xiao. Brothers, no discord, no concord. Let us go, and we'll split the silver we've collected with you 50-50. How about it? It's not easy to make a living. As soon as Tiger Wang finished speaking, the lackeys tied up behind him immediately nodded in agreement, completely losing their arrogance from before. Xiao ignored his words and asked with a cold gaze, "Who is Lord Wang?" When Wang Laohu saw that he had taken the initiative to ask, he thought that he was afraid. He immediately straightened his back and said proudly, "Lord Wang is the highest-ranking official in Li City. Magistrate of Li City, are you afraid?" Chu Qingyan was really worried about this bandit leader's IQ. He still didn't forget to brag, even when he was about to die. Li City's magistrate, Wang Geng, has been in office for 6 years. He's in charge of managing Li City and the surrounding towns, Turin reported to his master. Xiao nodded and continued to look at Tiger Wang. What's your relationship with him? Tiger Wang chuckled. He's my younger brother. What do you think our relationship is? Xiao narrowed his eyes. I see. Turin, take these people away and eradicate the mountain stronghold. Arrest everyone involved and hand them over to Lu Rue. Give him full authority to deal with them. This prince doesn't want these parasites who help the tyrant to live in this prince's fiefdom. Yes. Turin accepted the order and directed his men to take the bandits away one by one. This prince? Fiefdom? Wang Laohu immediately collapsed to the ground. Could it be that this person was His Highness Prince Ing, who had lost his power? He really stepped on the Hades Lord. After the bandits were taken away, the forest regained its tranquility. However, the sound of sobbing and whimpering could still be heard. It seemed that these womenfolk were really frightened. After the bandits were taken away, a space was cleared in front of Chu Qingyan. The Liu and Yang families immediately supported each other as they walked over, their faces still showing lingering fear. Little brother Chu, you guys are really amazing. You immediately arrested these heinous bandits who helped the tyrant do evil. Sure enough, it was the right choice to team up with you. Lu Shi walked over, his words full of admiration. As soon as Lu Shi walked over, the two families expressed their gratitude and praise. Chu Qingyan smiled. Uncle Lu is too kind. Then where are you taking these people? The Yang family guard who came to negotiate with Chu Qingyan before asked. We'll hand them over to the authorities. They'll make the decision. A country has its laws, and a family has its rules. We commoners can't punish them in private, Chu Qingyan replied. At this time, Hualing walked over with medicine in his hand. He said to everyone, if anyone here is injured, you can bring this one here to get some medicine and bandages. Treat them a bit and wait until we reach Li City before going to the medical hall for treatment. Hualing's words attracted the attention of most people. In the fight just now, other than Xiao Lai Chi, who wasn't injured, the two families' guards were more or less lightly injured, so everyone began to busy themselves. Chu Qingyan saw that everyone was busy and prepared to return to her team. At this time, a soft female voice sounded in Chu Qingyan's ears. This little brother, this little girl wants to personally thank your young master. Can you introduce me? Chu Qingyan turned around and saw that it was the Yang family's first daughter, Yang Yuhuan. She couldn't help but raise her eyebrows. Didn't this person always disdain to be with them? Why did she suddenly take the initiative? However, Chu Qingyan still politely declined. It's just a small matter, not worth mentioning. It's late at night and the dew is heavy. We should go back and rest early. When Yang Yuan heard her words, her expression changed slightly. She had a gentle appearance just now, but now she raised her chin slightly and had a domineering look. You're just a servant and didn't ask your master. What right do you have to answer for him? In this young lady's opinion, you should go and report to your master before replying to this young lady. Chu Qingyan raised her eyebrows. Yo, this person's tone wasn't small. Chapter 578. Chu Qingyan crossed her arms and looked at her. Miss Yang, if you want to thank me, then you don't have to. It's not up to you to interfere in the matters between me and your master. Yang Yuan felt that this person was just a little bitch. If she was in the Yang family, who would dare to disobey her? Qinghua and Cicada were cleaning up the place. They heard the conversation between the two and couldn't help but look at each other. This girl from the Yang family was quite bold. She actually dared to pluck hair from their little princess consort's head. Did she want to make things difficult for them? So Qinghua and Cicada walked forward. Qinghua coughed softly and said, Young master, how should the guards set up the defense? Cicada continued, a tent was damaged during the fight just now. I'm afraid that young master will have to go to the carriage to rest later. Chu Qingyan looked at the two. It seemed a little strange that they came over to report this at this time because this could be directly handed over to Turin. However, when she saw the two people winking at Yang Yuan with their backs to her, Chu Qingyan, who had been in tacit understanding for many years, immediately understood their meaning. They were trying to get back at her for her sake. It was difficult for these two straightforward people to think of this method. It was much better than their previous straightforward approach. Chu Qingyan was amused by their quick-wittedness, but she still answered them dutifully with a straight face. After they left, Chu Qingyan looked at Yang Yuan again. Yang Yuan was originally disdainful of this person, but when she heard her subordinate's respectful attitude towards her, her expression turned ugly and a little embarrassed. This was what Qinghua and Cicada wanted to achieve. Look, the person you look down on has a very high status in our place. You little brat, go back to where you want to cool off. Wait for the little princess consort to counterattack. Since it's inconvenient for your master, then Yang Yuan wanted to retreat. Chu Qingyan raised her hand to stop her and said with a smile, Since Miss Yang came here with such sincerity, how can I let you come here for nothing? This way, please. The surprise came too suddenly, and Yang Yuan was about to give up. Who knew that luck would come? She maintained her ladylike demeanor and nodded reservedly. Then I'll have to trouble you. Just now, you were still calling me, and now you're calling me a little brother. Can you not change your attitude so quickly? However, what Chu Qingyan was curious about was why this person was looking for a big ice cube. Chu Qingyan nodded and led Yang Yuan towards the people by the bonfire. Young master. Chu Qingyan walked behind Xiao Su and called out. After dealing with the matter, the young princess went to talk to the housekeeper of the Liu family and did not come back. Xiao Su's face was dark the whole time, and Turin and the others had already retreated, hoping that the young princess would come back soon. At this time, Xiao Su heard her voice and his complexion improved a lot. He slowly turned around and was about to say a few words to her when he saw Yang Yuan standing behind her. He couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. What kind of messy woman did this little fellow provoke for him? You know you're back? We still have to hurry on with the journey tomorrow. Go back and rest early. Xiao Su finished speaking and was about to leave when he heard Yang Yuan speak. Young Master Xiao, this little girl is Yang Yuan, a family member of the magistrate of Fu City. I'm here to thank young master for saving me tonight. Yang Yuan saw that he was about to leave, so she immediately walked in front of him and blocked his way. Then she slightly lowered her head and said with a smile. The people around her all said that her graceful neck looked the best when she showed this action, so she deliberately turned her body slightly to show her best side in front of him. Although she only saw the side of his face, just looking at the side of his face was enough to make her mesmerized. If she could catch a glimpse of his full face, then what kind of country-toppling appearance would it be? Yang Yuan thought that she had seen many men, but no man could have such a cold temperament, confident posture, and peerless elegance like him. She, who thought highly of herself, couldn't help but be subdued by that one glance. The young girl's heart fell because of this. However, the person in front of Yang Yuan was not an ordinary person, but Xiao Su, who always kept women at arm's length. Of course, except for Chu Qingyan. It was his characteristic to be unromantic. With just one word, Xiao Su sent her away. He didn't even look at her, because he never paid attention to insignificant people. Chu Qingyan secretly laughed. Sometimes, she didn't even need to do anything. The big ice block could get rid of people in minutes. Instead of fighting back, she might as well push the boat with the current and hand the person over to the big ice block. With such a cold tone, it was obvious that the other party didn't have any intention to chat. Yang Yuan couldn't help but change her expression. Why didn't this person even reply with a word of courtesy? However, Yang Yuan didn't feel frustrated because of this. She raised her head and said with a smile, "Young Master Xiao, it's late at night, and you've also been tormented for an entire night. This young lady has boiled some brown sugar ginger water. If young master doesn't mind, this young lady will have someone send it over to let young master warm your body so that you can sleep more comfortably later. Take it as an expression of this young lady's family's gratitude." Chu Qingyan raised her eyebrows. Even sending a drink over, what was this young lady of the Yang family trying to do? Could it be that she had taken a fancy to her big ice block? But wasn't he obviously ignoring them earlier? Why did he change after a fight? Could it be that something had happened earlier that she didn't know about? At this moment, Xiao Su had already opened his mouth. "Warm my body." Seeing that he had spoken, Yang Yuan was overjoyed, but she restrained her joy and nodded. "Brown sugar, ginger water can drive away the cold." Chu Qingyan snorted in her heart. Just a bowl of brown sugar, ginger water was enough to bribe him? Wasn't it too easy? What happened to being cold and aloof and keeping people 1,000 miles away? Xiao Su nodded and pointed to the person beside him. "Give her a bowl." He remembered that the little fellow seemed to still be in that period of time, so drinking some of this would be quite good. Thinking of this, Xiao Su suddenly remembered that she was still riding a horse today and immediately said coldly, "You're not allowed to ride a horse for the next 2 days." After saying all this, Xiao Su then left with peace of mind. Yang Yuan didn't react in time, while Chu Qingyan was slightly stunned. Seriously, the big ice block. He even wanted to interfere in this kind of thing. However, she immediately turned her head and smiled at Yang Yuan, who was stunned on the spot, and said, "Then I'll have to trouble Miss Yang." Yang Yuan was a little confused. This young Master Xiao was quite considerate to his subordinates. She really couldn't tell. However, when she saw Chu Qingyan, her expression became a little ugly. This servant had really taken advantage of her. However, she could also see that this Chu Qingyan was a popular person in front of young Master Xiao. If she wanted to get close to young Master Xiao, it seemed that she had to spend some effort on Chu Qingyan. "Miss Yang, my young master has asked me to accompany you to bring the brown sugar water. This way, please." Cicada had already swiftly walked in front of Yang Yuan, blocking her reluctant gaze. Yang Yuan's expression changed. How impatient! At this moment, young Master Xiao had already disappeared. She bit her lip and turned back somewhat unwillingly. It didn't matter. The road was still long. There was still a chance. Chapter 579. Because the tent was damaged in the fight, Chu Qingyan wanted to return to the carriage to rest, but Big Ice Cube told her that Big Ice Cube had already given his tent to her and was sleeping alone in the carriage. Chu Qingyan was a bit moved. She was lying in the brocade quilt that he had just laid in, and she was filled with his refreshing scent. She didn't know if it was because of the ginger soup or something else, but she felt strangely warm. The familiar scent and scene reminded her of the first time she went camping in the wilderness. She was so scared that she knocked on Big Ice Cube's tent in the middle of the night. Back then, she was just giving it a try. After all, Big Ice Cube usually appeared arrogant and cold in front of everyone, but she didn't expect that he would really open his tent and accept her. Moreover, she even coveted the delicious taste of his skin and took a bite. Cough, cough. She really admired her past self for having the courage to bare her teeth in front of Tiger. But did she still have the courage from back then? When she heard him say those words, her complacent thoughts had been beaten back. If she hadn't happened to pass by his study window back then, would she have been able to deceive herself for a while longer? Chu Qingyan hugged the brocade quilt and was at a loss because this was an unknown answer. Then how do you feel about the little princess consort, master? More like a little sister. Suddenly, a gust of wind blew in and scattered the scent inside. She suddenly recalled a very popular phrase on the internet in the past. Walking and walking, you disappear. When I turn around, I realize you're gone. I'm suddenly confused. This phrase was very suitable for her current mood, but she didn't know what answer she was waiting for. That answer that was more like a little sister made her very sad. Chu Qingyan sighed when she couldn't even figure out her own thoughts. Forget it. I'll just keep lying to myself. I'll think about it again when I have nowhere to hide one day. She convinced herself and then slowly fell asleep. She didn't have any dreams until dawn. Early in the morning, the Liu family and the Yang family sent a lot of things to express their gratitude, but Chu Qingyan rejected them all. It wasn't because they were polite, but because they really didn't need it. At noon, they arrived at Li City. Liu Shi stopped at the city gate and expressed his deep gratitude to Chu Qingyan and her entourage on behalf of his master. He also tried his best to invite them to his residence as guests. However, Chu Qingyan declined with the excuse that she was in a hurry. Liu Shi expressed his regret and thanked her profusely. He even left behind his address and said that he would visit the residence again when he was free. Chu Qingyan accepted with a smile. Who knows if there would be any future dates? After entering the city, Yang Yuan sent a guard to pass on a message. Because they had seen Chu Yan's valiance last night, the Yang family's guard's attitude towards them had changed. They no longer looked down on them. Little brother Chu, our miss said that she has already found an inn. Since we have to travel together, why don't we stay together? Chu Qingyan didn't care. She asked Big Ice Block. Seeing that he didn't object, she agreed. As soon as they arrived at the inn, everyone planned to have lunch. Just as Chu Qingyan was about to sit down and wait for her food to be served, two ladies stood beside her. Chu Qingyan looked up and saw Yang Yuan and Yang Xiaowan. She was a little surprised. Don't the two misses need to eat? Yang Yuan's face was slightly bitter. This inn's business is so good that there are no seats downstairs. So, can this little girl and my sister share a table with young Master Xiao? Chu Qingyan looked around. Indeed, all the tables were full. Madame Yang had already gone upstairs to rest because she was tired from the journey. Originally, Chu Qingyan wanted to say that the two of them could go to their rooms and order more food, but seeing that they were both young girls, she felt that it would be too straightforward. She couldn't help but say, if the two of you don't mind, you can eat together. After agreeing, Chu Qingyan suddenly remembered something. Her Big Ice Block didn't like to eat at the same table with others. She coughed and looked at the person beside her with some regret. Xiao Su originally didn't like to eat at the same table with others. But seeing that Yang Xiaowan's eyes had been glued to the little fellow from time to time after being saved twice by him, he felt a little uncomfortable. Now that he saw her eating at the same table with the little fellow, he resisted the urge to get up. Chu Qingyan saw that her Big Ice Block didn't get up in anger and was relieved. Then, she immediately said to the two Miss Yang, my young master doesn't like to eat at the same table with others. How about I order a few other dishes for you? No need, no need. We'll do it ourselves. Yang Yuan was already very satisfied to be able to find a chance to get close to young Master Xiao. She immediately called the waiter and ordered the dishes she wanted to eat. Chu Qingyan saw that Yang Yuan only ordered the dishes she liked and didn't even ask her stepsister. She couldn't help but shake her head. Yang Xiaowan was originally a little embarrassed. She didn't know why her elder sister would suddenly think of sharing a table with little brother Chu. Moreover, along the way, her elder sister had been paying attention to young Master Xiao and ordered people to inquire about him. Yang Xiaowan was more naive and didn't understand. But she was very happy to be able to be together with little brother Chu. In her heart, Chu Yan's position was not ordinary. He didn't need to secretly look at her and could eat at the same table with her openly. Yang Xiaowan was very grateful to her elder sister. Although this inn's business was very good, the speed of the dishes being served was very fast. However, Yang Yuhuan, who had been racking her brains to think of a way to talk, saw a scene that she didn't expect. Young Master Xiao actually personally helped Chu Yin to serve the dishes. Although the two of them didn't communicate, they were obviously used to it. How could a master personally do this kind of thing for a servant? Yang Yuhuan was completely stunned. Yang Xiaohuan, who was at the side, saw that her elder sister kept staring at the other person and felt a little impolite. She whispered a reminder, "Elder sister, it's time to eat." Yang Yuhuan's train of thought was interrupted, and she glared at her stepsister with some dissatisfaction. Then, she rolled her eyes and pretended to kindly remind Xiao Su. "Young Master Xiao, it's very inconvenient to eat with a veil on. Why don't you take it off?" Last night's fight had consumed a lot of energy. Today, they had rushed for half a day. Chu Qingyin was already so hungry that her chest was sticking to her back. At this time, she was immersed in eating. Suddenly hearing Yang Yuhuan's words, she was a little surprised. She raised her head from the rice and looked at Yang Yuhuan with narrowed eyes. Yang Xiaohuan was also a little surprised. Elder sister's words were too bold, right? He didn't seem to be familiar with them. But Yang Xiaohuan never dared to have any objections to her elder sister's way of doing things. She continued to bury her head in eating. When Xiao Su heard that, he didn't do anything. Instead, he continued to eat. From time to time, he would serve Chu Yin food, as if Yang Yuhuan's words were air. Indeed, Xiao Su had only been paying attention to Yang Xiaohuan, the person who was coveting his little fellow. Who the hell was Yang Yuhuan? Not interested. That Yang Xiaohuan had peeked at the little fellow again. Oomph. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.